unmute that, like I said, for the recording. So first off, thank you for showing up this morning. My name is Dylan Rader. I am fire planner for what was formerly known as Nevada BLM Fire and Aviation, that is now known as the Wildland Fire Service. As part of my position, not only now with the Wildland Fire Service, but as a fire planner, I'm also responsible for doing WFDSS training and providing WFDSS training on an annual basis. We've done that in a variety of different ways over the years. We've done in person, we've done virtual, we've done single teams meetings. You know, during COVID, we do one single WFDSS meeting that the entire state participated in. But we've found that, especially over the last couple of years, starting last year, we transitioned into an entirely new WFDSS system. We called it WFDSS Next Generation. We no longer call it WFDSS Next Generation. It's just WFDSS. So if you hear me say WFDSS Next Generation, it's kind of some old lingo. But with the transition last year to the new WFDSS, we thought it would be prudent to go back and do the in-person trainings and help develop a little bit of depth locally for WFDSS as well. I'm not going to talk a lot about the transition just because there's so much up in the air right now that we spent 2 days spinning our wheels in Reno talking about things that are, you know, somewhat within our control, but are still largely outside of our control. What we do know in the transition, though, is that WFDSS is going to play a key role in coordination between the bureaus and the Wildland Fire Service. Within the last week, we've gotten the authorities documents that I know everybody has read. At this point, if you're in this room, you've probably read them by now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, hit me up after the meeting or hit up your supervisor, because you should have read them by now. But those authorities documents really kind of outline how we're moving forward in this transition phase and what those authorities are as far as approvals within fire management. And of course, WFDSS, the Wildland Fire Decision Support System, is the authoritative data system, the authoritative record system of our extended attack fires and the decision that goes into how those fires are managed. And with WFDSS, we have the ability to coordinate with multiple approvers now. Last year, there was a bug in WFDSS that only allowed us to do one approver. So it was kind of a hindrance. We worked through that last year, and now we've got a system where you can have multiple approvers. So for those of you who are experienced WFDSS people, the decision rationale is going to become a very important collaboration space within WFDSS, where Bureau and Wildland Fire Service can coordinate on what the decision is for the long-term extended attack management of our fires, and specifically what type of management actions we're going to take on those fires once we get that figured out as well. So again, there's a lot of what ifs with the transition, but the one thing that I know for a fact is that WFDSS is going to play a key role in how we coordinate and collaborate during extended attack fires, and how the Wildland Fire Service and the bureaus that we support, whether that be Bureau of Land Management, whether that be Park Service, whether that be Bureau of Indian Affairs, whether that be any of the other federal land management agencies that we support in the Wildland Fire Service, those bureau representatives who were once known as agency administrators, they're now bureau representatives, they're going to have a key role in the WFDSS decision, and they're going to need to be able to navigate the WFDSS system as well. So outside of that, I also see with the, so basically in the authorities document now with WFDSS decisions, the Bureau has an approver and the Wildland Fire Service has an approver, right? So before, where singularly the jurisdictional land management agency, their agency administrator was the agency administrator of record for that portion of the fire, if it was their jurisdiction. If there are multiple jurisdictions, there would be multiple agency administrators, one from each jurisdiction. Now that positional responsibility is known as a bureau representative, and the jurisdictional authorized officer is the authority signature. So whether it's field manager in the BLM, whether it's refuge manager in the Fish and Wildlife Service. I don't know, what does the park call theirs? Superintendents, okay, thank you. Whatever that terminology is, whatever those positions are, those are now Bureau representatives, and that authority comes to them inherent through the position that they hold. So there is no additional fire qualification or fire title that they need to hold in order to exercise that. Just the job that they hold is what provides them that authority to do that. So if that doesn't make sense, there's a lot of discussion going on right now with the authorities. But again, to take it back to what is within our control, specifically within WFDSS, it's going to make it even more important that editors know how to edit good, defensible WFDSS decisions, that Wildland Fire Service employees know how to walk the agencies through that process and know what that process entails. And outside of just doing the decision in WFDSS, there's a lot of analysis that's within WFDSS that we're just starting to touch the surface of. WFDSS holds the decision for the fire, but all the decision support that goes with that is also part of that record. And whether that's fire behavior modeling, whether that's values mapping, whether that's incident strategic alignment process, ISAP process that goes into that WFDSS decision, all of that additional decision support needs to be documented within the decision and included within the decision. And that's what we're going to go through today, is how you can do that in the editor mode in WFDSS and include all of that additional auxiliary support. So are there questions on kind of where we're going with WFDSS and what we got planned for the rest of the day? Okay, I do have, we're going to do introductions real quick. And while we're doing introductions, I'm also going to pass in a sign-in sheet. There's a couple options for the sign-in sheet. You guys will see as I get into the PowerPoint presentation. There's a link tree that I keep referencing. There's also a link tree on the email that I sent out, if you guys have that, or the agenda that's a part of the calendar invite, or may not be part of this calendar invite, but the agenda when I sent out the email, I think a couple weeks ago. There's a link tree on there that's going to have all of the support links that go with this training as well. But part of this is keeping a roster. So if you could please sign into the roster as I pass it around. I do have a pen as well. Guaranteed I won't get that back. So I'm giving you my pilot that the thing snapped off of. So it's it's a somewhat defective pen, but it still works, just like the rest of us. We're somewhat broken, but we still work. And then I am going to switch back from this. So let's start with introductions. Ben, as soon as, actually we'll start over here on this corner. And if you guys go ahead and stand up, just introduce who you are, what your position is, and what your role is within WFDSS.
So I'm Kenny Kendrick. I'm the acting field manager for the front field office, and I don't know, I'm gonna learn about it today.
Ryan Chatterton, the acting district manager for the Southern Nevada District. I'll be a bureau representative.
Chase Manis, I'm the AFMO for the former BLM, and my role, I'll probably be interacting with the bureau representatives and Tyler Hecht, exchanging information. And I do have editing capabilities also.
I'm Nick Bay. I'm the acting deputy district manager for Southern Nevada District, also EC rep.
Ben Krupski, the fuels program manager for Southern Nevada BLM with the for Wildland Fire Service. And my role is with author production for WFDSS.
Kenny Friend, engine captain here in Southern Nevada, and I'm here to learn.
Eric Mametz, engine captain here in Southern Nevada, part of the remote incident support and incident editor.
Aaron Reynolds, currently acting FOS down here in Southern Nevada, and I don't know, first time learning.
Sean Whalen at FOS with Southern Nevada BLM WFS. I'm an editor.
Louis Pravacki, FMO, Southern Nevada, and editor as well.
Good morning, Shane Kelly, I'm the prevention guy.
Manchester Jameson, fire ecologist, incident editor.
Katie Gully, Forest Service, acting district ranger, deputy is my day job. I am an agency administrator, so this is gonna be your.
Good morning, I'm Kate Village, fire planner for the district, and I'm an analyst.
David Craig, I'm the unit aviation manager, resident nerd, and editor for NVSND.
Good morning, Brendan Hansen, engine captain with the Wildland Fire Service, and yeah, here to learn about it.
Drew Anderson, past snowplow guy for fire, and fuels, and editor.
Good morning, everybody. Field manager for Las Vegas Field Office. Have been agency administrator in the past, interested to see how the organizations work this year.
All right, everybody, Tyler Hecht, FMO for the Wildland Fire Service representing BLM and editor, and we'll see, maybe approver, I guess, here shortly.
And before I kick it off to Tyler or Nick or any of the other field managers, if there's anything that you want to say about WFDSS, or I guess I'll give you guys the opportunity to kind of be part of the kickoff. If there's anything you guys want to say about WFDSS and how you've used it in the past in your positions.
Nick, Ryan, anything?
Nick knows.
I actually really enjoy WFDSS. I probably geek out about it a little too much, but I love the support that it provides line officers, fire staff, that opportunity to collaborate and build the decision together. So I'm interested to see how it goes forward now that we're in different roles, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
Good. Tyler, your role as IC, maybe, how you use WFDSS too, that maybe people don't consider?
Yeah, well, Dylan touched on it now with the actual strategies. You can be something that's gonna be a little bit different this year, but we definitely notice when there's good with this decisions and when there's not, and when there's forests that put a lot of time into it or not, you know, and we have to come in and guide that sometimes. For down here, I think we've done a really good job interagency wise of working on what those decisions look like and including everybody. We have some uniqueness with DOE and DOD and what that looks like, and we really brought them into the fold now and getting them to understand what that looks like so that they can have some decision space on that. And they're not authorizers within the system, but they can at least provide their input and be part of the process. So thank you, Kate, for all the work that you've done to get us ready for fire season with this, as we're ready to go for the here within a few weeks, probably down here could be doing one. So
yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Appreciate it. And yeah, the Forest Service, right? That brought up a really interesting point as well that I just considered, or I did not consider. Forest Service still has agency administrator positions. So you're still going to hear that terminology throughout the summer. So yeah, if transitions couldn't be any worse than where we are right now in my mind, but we'll work our way through it and we'll continue to communicate. And the changing of terminology though, and the vocabulary stuff is what's really killing me on what we're going through, because this is not the time to be doing major changes in terminology and how we do this stuff. So we'll talk more through that though. As part of this, I've got a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to get into, and then we're going to get into WFDSS itself. And again, it's pretty flexible. We are, as far as the agenda goes, and I'll try not to bounce back and forth here too much. We're at this point right here. We're going to do part one over the next hour. And then when we actually get into WFDSS, we kind of divide that up into 4 parts, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hopefully we can get to part 4 around 11 o'clock or so. And then that'll be keeping us on schedule. So for the agency administrators, I realize scheduling wise, 4 hours is a lot to ask of you. But if you need to step out, if you can come back or sometime around that 11 o'clock time frame, that's when we'll be getting to the approval process, and you guys can actually get in and see how to do the approvals in WFDSS. If you can't stick around through the whole thing, if you can, great. We'll take a lunch break and then we'll come back after lunch. I've got basically 2 parts that I wanted to cover after lunch. Whether or not each of those is an hour kind of depends on us. One is going to be going through Spatial Fire Planning Service. So Kate, I'm going to ask Kate to maybe take half an hour this afternoon and present what you guys have in Spatial Fire Planning Service, at least pre-built, ready for fire season. And then I can talk a little bit about the multi-unit shapes that we have set up for what we used to call Nevada BLM, which is now the Nevada Wildland Fire Service. And then we'll get into also a discussion on ISAP and WFDSS integration as well. And I got a couple products that we can use to help support that. Big part of the WFDSS training, and I will be front and center in this, is just making sure that the right people have accounts in WFDSS. And by you sitting here today, that means that you've accomplished part one. If you haven't signed up for an account yet, that is part two. So on the agenda are the instructions. Everything is done through FAMOFF now. So if you're not a regular FAMOFF user, I would definitely recommend learning FAMOFF, because that's going to be basically the computer system that we access everything through the Wildland Fire Service and moving forward. You need to sign up for 2 accounts in there, WFDSS Production and WFDSS EDU. WFDSS EDU is training, and you need to request editor roles. And I know this may be hard to look at. Part of that link tree is you can look on the PDF, but please request both EDU and production accounts. And also realize once you have those accounts that you need to log in to each account at least annually to maintain it. That includes the EDU side. So you need to log into both production and training at least once a year. Otherwise your account becomes inactive and you either have to send me an email or you have to go through FAMOFF and re-request it. So that is how you request your account. And then if, for example, somebody gets pulled out, you can't do anything with the training, I'm asking if you can at least log into WFDSS and check that your profile information is up to date. That accomplishes 2 things. You've logged in, so you've reset your WFDSS account for the year, and you've also updated all of your contact information, which is important in WFDSS. And the one thing that I tell everybody is where it says include cell phone number. If somebody's using WFDSS to get a hold of you, they need to get a hold of you. Don't put the dispatch phone line, don't put the front desk phone line, don't put the desk phone that never gets answered phone line. Put a phone line in there that somebody can get a hold of you at. So if you're setting up your profile, if you're setting up a WFDSS account, make sure you've got a cell phone number in there where somebody can get a hold of you if they need to get a hold of you. And then finally, there's a link tree that if I click on that, it'll open up. Sorry. Always right where I need it. It'll open up this link tree right here. This link tree basically has links to support all of the training that we're going to go through today, including all of the WFDSS links that we're going to talk about are right here. The WFDSS training, the guide that we're talking about, the training agenda. I've actually set up a shared FireNet drive where you can go into that shared FireNet drive and access all of the past WFDSS decisions that were done in WFDSS Classic as well. You can actually get those through WFDSS now. All of the things that we talk about today are going to be on this link tree, along with some other fire decision support products that we support at what you used to call state office anyway. So Steve has the Nevada Fire Maps link tree. I have the Nevada Fire Planning link tree. And between those 2 link trees, most of the spatial products that we put together for all of our fire management, whether it be spatial fire planning or WFDSS fire planning, is included in these 2 link trees here. So those are available as well. Want to make sure that that is known. And with that, we'll get into the presentation. So again, I know we've got some online folks. It looks like we've got a couple people that have signed on online. I'm really not paying much attention to the chat window, but if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat window. And as soon as I get to a break, I'll make sure that I answer any of those questions. And then for the folks that are in here, again, I'm flexible. If you need to go back to your computer, you can sign in during the Teams. You can sign in on the Teams meeting, participate as you want throughout the morning. Come in here, sit down in here, bring your laptop, bring an iPad, bring whatever you need to do to help you get through the day. But we do plan on being in here most of the day, so make the most of your time. Any questions about that? Everyone good with the sign-in sheet? Okay, that make sure that gets around. I don't enter anything into IQCS for this unless that changes. So if anybody wants that sign-in sheet for anything more locally, just hit me up with an email and I'll get you a PDF copy of it or whatever. But I just keep the sign-in sheet. I'll talk to Burlington and see if maybe building it in IQCS is worthwhile. But outside of that, it's just the documentation is the sheet itself. So if you need further documentation that you attended, just let me know. And again, kind of here's the expected outcome. We're going to go through WFDSS Next Generation, such as account management settings. We're going to demonstrate the authoring of a basic WFDSS decision from creation to approval, and also includes time to go through the processes that you guys use for WFDSS authoring, and also the use of the National Spatial Fire Planning Service, because it's not so much just the WFDSS decision, you know, plans are worthless, right? Planning is everything. I think that's an Eisenhower quote. I may have butchered it to a degree or once, but it's not the actual plan itself. It's the process of going through the plan that is invaluable, and that can be more true in the fire service too. It's the actual process of sitting down with the cooperators, with all the affected agency administrators, understanding what the current situation is of your fire, understanding what the projected movement of your fire over the next 3 to 7 days, understanding what values are going to be impacted within those timeframes, and understanding what the priorities are for the incident management team that's managing that fire. That's all the process that WFDSS forces us to do. So it's not the decision, it's not the PDF decision that we get at the end. It's the process that WFDSS forces us to go through that allows us to be successful in how we manage these fires. And I'm not saying there aren't other ways we could accomplish that, but in our current policy and in our current processes, WFDSS is what really forces us to do that on an interagency basis. Okay. So I talked about the link tree. Again, I talked about some of the links. Thank you for the sign-in sheet. I've really kind of talked a lot about effective wildland fire decision-making. So a little bit about my background. I'm not just a fire planner for Nevada BLM. I'm also a strategic operational planner, or SOPL, for those of you who are involved in fire. And I'm also a complex plans chief who spent a lot of time on Great Basin teams and outside of region teams as well. So part of my position within ICS, I've also been, WFDSS has driven my processes in all of my fire management, whether I'm a division supervisor, or whether I'm a plans chief, or whether I'm a strategic operational planner. The WFDSS decision is where all of that direction comes from. So effective management is predicated upon good decision-making. A lot of the reason why we need to have these decision support systems, and this PowerPoint was put together in 2009, and a lot of the issues that were identified in 2009 are the same that we have in 2026, right? Resource availability can no longer match fire occurrence. That is a reality in whether we're the Wildland Fire Service or whatever we call ourselves. We realize that in PL5 type situations, we don't have enough resources to staff every fire that needs to be staffed. And we're never going to have the resources to staff every fire in PL5s. We need to figure out a way to prioritize those fires. We need to figure out a way to prioritize the values that get protected and how those values are managed long-term after a fire is contained as well. Management of large fires is becoming increasingly important. Large fire costs is becoming increasingly important as well. The smallest percentage of total wildland fires are the large fires account for the largest amount of expenditures. That is still the case, right? I mean, 2% of our fires take up 98% of our budget, and that's how it always has been. So again, with the decision support system, we can look at what those costs are. We can look at what values are being protected, and we can help to prioritize how values and how resources are assigned based on values at risk. And again, that bottom key point there, initial strategic response decisions are most important in terms of resource commitments and expenditures. We've learned that what we do on a fire between day 1 and day 5 affects what happens to most fires on day 30, right? So if we're proactive and we can be very reactive to fires within that first 5-day window, we are much more successful. Whether you call that initial attack success whatever you call that. Keeping fires small is always the best management option. And that being able to do that on a large scale interagency, multiple jurisdictional type event is key, and having WFDS and being able to have that decision in WFDS. Morning, guys. Come on in. Feel free to find a seat wherever you can. So again, a lot of the, I don't see any extra chairs. I'll grab you an extra chair. Here's one extra chair. Okay, gotcha. A lot of the policy that drives WFDS still comes from the 2009 federal fire policy implementation. And if you guys ever want to take, a good hour or so in the Red Book, read through what used to be Chapter 1 in the Red Book, and that'll kind of give you a good understanding of where all of our general authorities, whether they come through statute or through policy, through law or through policy, comes from in federal fire response. In 2009, federal fire policy implementation guidance changed to where a wildland fire could be concurrently managed for one or more objectives, and objectives can change across the landscape. Objectives can be affected by changes in weather, fuels, topography, varying social understanding and tolerance, and involvement of other jurisdictional government jurisdictions having different missions and objectives. So currently, we can still manage fire that way. There is discussion to change our approach and the suppression terminology and how we classify fire. There's still a lot of questions that came out. There was actually a memo that came out from the National Fire Board in February that directed us to start using new terminology, specifically called direct extinguishment and indirect containment. And there was a lot of questions that came out of that because it basically didn't answer. There's two other options that we used to do basically in fire that it doesn't even address. So we wanted to know point zone protection and monitoring. Are those still management options of wildland fire? Or are we going either direct or indirect on every fire, right? That's really the question right now. So there's still some clarification that needs to happen before we can say that we're changing that. But in 2009, the federal policy update basically stated that before we could only manage fire for one objective. This 2009 update said that you could manage part A of a fire for full suppression, part B of a fire could be managed for monitoring, part C of a fire could be managed for point zone protection, as long as you had appropriate NEPA coverage to manage all of those. The other thing that the 2009 policy implementation guidance specifically said is that managers will use a decision support process to guide and document wildfire decisions. Process provides situational assessment, analyzes hazards and risks, defines implementation actions, and document decisions and rationale for those decisions. That is what WFDS does, and that is what we do within the WFDS system. Decision support, which is WFDS is all predicated on decision support, provides information used by managers when they are making the decisions. So yes, there is pre-season work that needs to be done in WFDS between fire planners, fire managers, and agency administrators, but WFDS provides information to managers as they need to make a decision. Decision support does not replace decision making. Obviously, that's why we still have decisional authorities, and that's why we still have decisions that need to be made. There are times where we still need to have a yes, no answer. Can we do this? Can we not do this? That is the decision that we're asking, and that decision needs to be documented within WFDS. Decision support information comes from a variety of sources. It can ranging from experience to quantitative analysis procedures. You'll see a lot of the work that we're getting into now is based off of quantitative risk analysis. And that's what we're going to be talking to as we get into more fire modeling and value mapping and so forth in the future. It also has applications across a range of scales and concentrations. So WFDS is a web-based system that simply provides one shared platform that between operational resources and agency administrators, you can look at risk and decision sharing simply and efficiently. You can document strategic decisions. You can also do decision support analysis utilizing fire behavior modeling, utilizing economic principles and information technology, and also information for completion of an operational plan. As a plans chief on night 0 of a fire, when we go through an in briefing, the first thing I'm doing as a plans chief is I go into the WFDSS decision, I look in the objectives, and I start formulating my incident objectives that are gonna go into tomorrow's ICS 202, right? Or ICS 201. That's the one thing that I'm looking at, is I'm looking at the WFDSS decision and I'm pulling out those objectives. And that's how operationally your WFDSS decision gets used, is the objectives that go into the team's IEP are then cascaded down through division assignments that are reflected daily in an ICS 204. Those daily division assignments in the ICS 204 should reflect what your WFDSS decision says. And if your WFDSS decision ever conflicts with what the division assignments on the 204 are saying to do for the day, that's when you need to go through some sort of alignment process, right? You need to go through a strategic alignment process to make sure that your decision is back in alignment with what's going on in the ground. And that's kind of the circular process for how WFDSS works in this operational world. But wait, there's a new WFDSS, right? So all of that was based off of a PowerPoint presentation from WFDSS in 2015, and it still hasn't changed, right? We're still utilizing WFDSS in the same processes. We're still utilizing a lot of the same decision support, but now there's a new WFDSS, and the new WFDSS is more scalable. You know, it is somewhat more capable there, but it's also very map driven. So where WFDSS Classic, you know, there was obviously a map. The maps weren't the main part of WFDSS. With WFDSS Next Generation, or what I'm just calling WFDSS now, it is a lot more spatially driven. It's a lot more AGOL based product. So with the new WFDSS, it integrates the National Feature Service layers. So old WFDSS, you could never see fire perimeters in your WFDSS decision. Now, as soon as a perimeter is updated in the National Feature Service, it's updated in WFDSS. So that's definitely handy. All of the layers that we talked about from the RMA dashboard, whether we're talking potential control locations, suppression difficulty index, potential ground evacuation time, snag hazard difficulty, all of those different layers that are available on the RMA dashboard are available in WFDSS as well, which supports the ISAP process. For those of you, show of hands, if I just say ISAP, how many of you have a familiar understanding of what ISAP is? How many of you have been through it and actually sat through the ISAP process from beginning to end? Okay, so a handful of you. ISAP is kind of the newest effort. Started as a Forest Service effort, no doubt there, and has eventually kind of filtered its way down, and now we have policy in the Red Book that says that we will undergo strategic alignment. We will go through the ISAP process, or we will undergo strategic alignment on all extended attack fires. Doesn't have to be the ISAP process, but that strategic alignment will take place, whether or not you use the ISAP process or not. But the ISAP process definitely ensures that you hit all four pillars of what needs to be covered, and we're going to talk some more about that. Our fire modeling services are done using the land fire product service in WFDSS as well. So that's definitely a huge benefit. There's a lot of commercial services trying to sell us, you know, all these new, and the fire modeling that we have in WFDSS is just as good as any commercial services that you have out there right now. The interface that we have for it may not be as good. They may be showing you a better interface, but the fire modeling that we have in WFDSS is just as good as what you can get through any of the commercial services. It is still lacking. You can do more modeling in IFDS now. For those of you that sat through our training last week, that's what we did in Reno, is we did a 90-minute IFDS modeling training. So between IFDS and WFDSS, there's a lot of fire modeling that you can do now and support your decision support. Now it interfaces with FIMS. You know, back in February, a lot of you were in Reno for the fire danger workshop. We updated our fire management plans because now we have the fire environment mapping system, or FIMS, that is now our authoritative data system for fire weather and national fire danger rating system information. All of that information is also brought into WFDSS as well. So you can see how all these systems are becoming a lot more interoperable, which is a good thing. And then also Spatial Fire Planning Service, all of the spatial products that go into WFDSS, all of the text, all of the polygons, all of the different GIS shapes, all are derived from the Spatial Fire Planning Service. So fire planners, not only do we maintain WFDSS, but we also maintain all of the data that goes into it through the Spatial Fire Planning Service, and that gets updated on an annual basis as well. Some of the major improvements. So now these are improvements that have happened over the last year. We have collaboration with multiple approvers. The incident complexity level completely mirrors the PMS 236. So what you see in WFDS is actually the PMS, and that says 263. That should say 236. It actually interfaces with Irwin as well. So as soon as an incident is built in Irwin, it interfaces with the WFDS platform as well. So you can see that information in real time. You can access historical decisions and analysis. That was a huge thing that you couldn't do last year. You couldn't pull up, we knew we had a decision there 5 years ago. We know we want to see it because, we're basically going to do the exact same thing on this fire. Now we can actually get into WFDS and pull that archive decision out, and you can copy and paste that information over into your new decisions. So that's good as well. One of the other key things is there's automatic validation of the WFDS decisions as well. So as we get into WFDS, and you'll see as we log into the WFDS system, there's actually a checkbox where it checks and it does all of the different parts of the WFDS. So it checks them off as we complete them.
I had a question real quick though.
Yeah.
I've been speaking into Irwin, and Irwin's getting updated by 209 every night. Is that driving the acreage and change in WFDS too, or is it still?
Certain fields, yeah, 209 is the authoritative data source for. You'll see in WFDS, like when we get into the strategic management of the fire, you check a box whether you want WFDS to be the authoritative data source or whether 209 says the authoritative data source. Yeah, right. Yeah, but you have to understand that, right? Yeah. Some of the things that are not going to be present, there's still going to be no system notifications. So, old WFDS has twice the capability of new WFDS. That's just flat out. And it's unfortunate. And that's still the way it is. And, part of this thing with the transition is we're focusing on building new technology. Hopefully we put as much effort into developing our half-built technology that we have that we're leaving behind, as well as developing new technology, and WFDS is part of that as well. So hopefully we do get some of these, things that we used to have, system notifications. We still don't have the additional fire behavior models in WFDS, the far site and the flat map. You have to do that either outside of WFDS. You can do it in a standalone program. You can do it in FDDIS, but it's screenshots bringing it into WFDS. They're still not interoperable in the way that you can do a fire behavior run in FDDIS, and then you can log into WFDS and see it. You still have to do some additional steps to get that information into WFDS. So they're not fully interoperable yet, but they're definitely a lot better than they used to be. And then if any of you sat through the RDNA webinar last couple of weeks ago, you may have, I think Jason Fallon, that's the first time I'd heard of Jason Fallon. He's the new Intel branch chief for the Wildland Fire Service at the HQ level. So he's basically in charge of WFDS for the Wildland Fire Service, and basically kind of the same things we talked about. It's a tool for agency administrators to bring together the land resource management plan direction and other policy directives, brings in all the fire modeling, critical values data, and it also helps, it's part of that risk-informed decision process. It ensures that decisions are published timely and updated as needed. The WFDS decision serves as the official legal document for the decisions on federal incidents, and it also supports ISAP as well. So those are all things they talked about on the WFDS refresher that they did last week. You'll notice that with new WFDS, there's only 5 roles now, where there used to be 12 roles. So we're basically simplifying the roles from 5 down to 12. So the 5 roles that we do have are fire behavior analyst, their support, geographic area editor, viewer, and editor. Viewer role really doesn't give you anything in WFDS. So if you request access to WFDS, make sure you're requesting editor role. That's what you want. Editor role is what allows you to edit the decision. And then fire behavior analyst is an additional role outside of that. Support and geographic area editor, that's the highest role. That's the highest in the decision tree authority. But all of those roles supersedes the role before it. So as geographic area editor, I can go in and do the role of an editor. I can do the role of a fire behavior analyst. I have all those roles. All right, we're gonna talk a lot more about fire behavior modeling in the future, but one of the things that I want, folks to consider is even though we can't do the fire behavior modeling in WFDS as easily as we used to, we still have phone a friend. Basically, through RIST or through the remote incident support team. It's another effort that's been driven by the Forest Service over the last 5 years, highly successful, super successful in supporting type 3 incidents. They also do WFDS support now, and you can either support WFDS authoring help, or you can also request fire behavior modeling, which is a huge benefit to us. And typically, when you request that, it's a fairly quick turnaround. We're talking hours, not days. So if you have an incident and you put in a request in the morning and you have a need for fire behavior modeling for the afternoon, it's within expectation that you get that at some point during the day where it's useful for you. So understand that there are different types of fire modeling that we can do in WFDS. We can still do FS Pro modeling in WFDS. FS Pro is a completely probabilistic model. It doesn't give us what a perimeter looks like at the end of the run. It gives us what a probability is that single pixel is going to be impacted by fire. So you have to understand how to use that information, not just so that you're looking at it in a deterministic, what is my perimeter going to look like, but you're more overlaying your values and saying, what is the probability of this value being impacted? And if it is going to get impacted, what is the time frame that I have before that impact happens? And that's what you can get out of FS Pro modeling. That's what FS Pro is really good at. So you need to understand what type of modeling you're looking for. And then that gets worked into this decision support process where, this is kind of a big screen here, but step one is you identify the problem, you gather your information, you do your analysis. And then once your analysis is done, you synthesize that information, you affirm that the analysis was correct, and then you implement your plan after you've archived and documented what your decision is. So that's kind of what this process does. It allows you to identify what the situation is. It allows you to do the analysis of the situation and then synthesize that information, put that into a decision, and then archive that decision and implement the decision. All that happens within the WFDS process. The policy that drives our WFDS process, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. These are screenshots. You guys can look at the Red Book, obviously. I am going to say that I didn't put any of the 2026 Red Book information in there because that's still draft. We don't have a final Red Book yet. Once it is final, I'll update this, but a lot of the WFDS policy isn't changing at all. So from the 2025 Red Book, ICs, whether that IC is a type 3, 4, or 5, specifically at the type 3 level, all ICs will be responsible for, and it's down here in the middle, working on the WFDS. So that's why I thought, I think in the future, the WFDS is going to be more of a location that brings IC, agency administrators, and Wildland Fire Service together to look at one single platform. And I see that where WFDS being important. And that's why our past practice of, hey, I'm an IC3, I'm out here in the field, I'm doing my thing, I'm never going to look in WFDS. Now I'm encouraging, if I'm an IC3, which I am still an IC3, as many of you guys are in the room, I want access to WFDS because I want to be able to log into WFDS. I want to be able to see that decision as it's being decided on. And I don't want to rely on somebody saying that they're going to send me a PDF or email me this or email me that. If I have access to WFDS, I can log into WFDS for my fire and I can see exactly what is being decided on for my fire at the time it's being decided on. And that makes me more part of the process. So if you're going to be the one that sits on the sideline saying, I'm waiting for someone to email it to me, or I'm waiting for this, go ahead, feel free. But if you want to be the one that's more proactive and involved in that process, that's why you want to have access to WFDS as well. All right, published decision documents, all of the strategic direction from the Land and Resource Management Plan. And I realize this is really hard for the people here in the room, so I'm going to scan through that real quick. This is probably better. Initial decisions, everything will have an initial decision when it escapes initial attack. When it exceeds initial response, or if it includes objectives for both protection and resource benefit elements consistent with land management planning documents. So what that says is that if your fire has any kind of resource management direction, if you are doing anything other than full suppression where you're utilizing fire for resource benefit, you have to have a WFDSS decision on day one of that fire. There isn't a day 3, 4, 5 window. If you're going to manage a fire, you need to do a WFDSS decision on day one. And that's what this is saying here. That initial decision needs to be done either when it escapes initial attack, exceeds initial response, or if it includes objectives for resource benefit. Additional considerations, the fire is likely to affect more than one agency, more than one administrative unit. The fire is burning or expected to burn into the wildland urban interface. Significant safety or other concerns such as air quality are present or anticipated. And the relative risk assessment indicates the need for additional evaluation and development of best management practices for achieving land and resource management objectives. So all of those are triggers to do that initial decision. People often ask me, when do we have to have the decision done? That's the policy right there. There is no 3-day, 5-day, from my point of view, I think there's a 5-day window in there where you need to have a good defensible decision done. Now, is that going to be for every fire? No, that's not going to be for every fire. If you guys have a fire that's, burning into the town of Pahrump and threatening 1,000 structures, then yes, you need to get that decision done and get it done immediately type thing. But so there's case by case still. But that escapes initial attack or exceeds initial response, that can be viewed a lot of ways by, a lot of different people. But anytime within that 3 to 5 day window, that's when I would expect to start seeing a decision. If a decision comes after that 5-day window, it's typically because a unit fell behind, right? And they're trying to place that jump, which is understandable. There's scenarios, if a unit gets 30 fires over a 3-day period, yeah, it's completely understandable that they're going to be a little bit behind in some of this stuff. So it's all guidelines, but if you want hard and fast policy, this is what the red book says right here as far as that initial decision. And I know this is small again, so this is documentation of other agencies. There's specific language that we should be including in the decision, that whether or not they were involved based off of, if they had jurisdiction, maybe they only had a little bit of jurisdiction and no fire impact. There's some varying language in there for other agencies that we need to include as well. So between Wildland Fire Service Agency Administrator and between BLM Agency Administrator, our Bureau representative, it's up to them to make sure that any other jurisdictional agencies are included in that decision as well. And that doesn't just mean decision within the fire perimeter. When we draw our planning area boundary in WFDSS, we draw a polygon that states that this is a polygon that this WFDSS decision covers. Any jurisdictional agency within that planning area has a seat at the WFDSS table, or should be provided a seat at the WFDSS table. At least initially, you guys as agency administrators can decide what their involvement is, if they're kind of on the periphery. But at least initially, they need to be involved in their specific red book process too, that kind of states that. And the other thing that we're going to talk about is kind of time frame. So this is a graphic that was put together. All the green boxes are agency administrator responsibilities. And again, I apologize. I realize it's kind of hard to read up there on the screen. If you want to look at the PDF, you can look at the PDF and get a little cleaner view. The yellow boxes are the team responsibility and the purple boxes are shared responsibility. So the first step of that ISAP process is identifying critical values at risk. That is part of the team's responsibility, but you can see here that developing the WFDSS and developing the WFDSS course of action is part of the agency administrator's responsibility. So all of that should be occurring within that first 1 or 2 day window before ordering the team. Once we're talking operational period 1, 2, 3, 4, your team is already getting established. They're getting the operational resources in place. They're developing their daily operational work plans, what they're going to get done. And if we decide on day 3 and 4 that we're going to completely switch up what we were doing strategically, we've just put that team another 3 days behind because they have to ramp up and do everything for that different area. So within those first 2 days, if we can identify values, put those values into WFDS and develop a good, strong course of action within our WFDS decision, we are setting that team up for success when they come in to be even more successful on day 2, 3, and 4. And part of that comes through that ISAP process. But part of that is also in this initial decision. If we do a good initial WFDS decision, that sets up the management of that fire from that point forward as well. So that's kind of my background in WFDS. One of the other things that I did last year, and we're not going to talk to the bottom thing here at all, is we developed a WFDS scorecard. And part of that WFDS scorecard includes not just, what is required by policy in the WFDS decision, but things from my perspective that help make a much better, much more defensible, much more operationally implementable WFDS decision. And we're going to talk to that more when we get into the guide as well. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that all of this information is available. You click on the link in here and you can take a look at it. And what we talk about today, as far as the WFDS decision, we're going to talk about how you can, as an editor, import this information into your WFDS decision and help make that a better decision as well. But all this has also been incorporated into the WFDS guide as well. So we'll talk more about that as we go through it. Some of the authorities that I did want to hit on real quick, and again, this is based off of the document that was sent out last week. So I was able to incorporate this into my presentation. There was another document. Well, this is the document that was sent out a week and a half ago. There was another document that was sent out on Friday that clearly delineated the roles within the Wildland Fire Service of how far that authority is delegated down to. I didn't include any of that in this presentation, so I apologize for that. But these are some of the items that I think are key for us kind of moving forward, specifically in fire planning. The first is FMPs. The Bureau is going to continue to approve all FMPs. So whether that's the district manager, whether that's the field manager, currently the BLM 1203 does not allow anyone below the district manager to approve an FMP. So that would probably stay at the DM level. Not saying that it has to, that's obviously within the Bureau's purview now, but that's where it has been historically. They will continue to sign all FMPs. The Spatial Fire Planning Service, the Fire Service will update everything in the Spatial Fire Planning Service, and the bureaus will provide support data to the Fire Service to do that. Agency administrators, you can read through the table there. Bureau will serve as the Bureau representative on land and resource management issues for both wildfires and prescribed fires, and will document land and resource management decisions by co-approving wildfire decisions. Prescribed fire plans or other documents as noted in the table. This table includes some authority changes for bureaus. Bureaus will work closely with the U.S. Wildland Fire Service Agency Administrator. Down here at the bottom, Ordering Incident Management Team. Both the Fire Service and the Bureau will jointly in-brief IMTs. So part of that in-briefing is a good WFDS decision as well. That's all going to be joint responsibility between the Bureau and the Fire Service. Okay, kind of getting into the meat of it, wildfire decision approvals, and these are both the same. Both the WFS and the bureaus will approve wildfire decisions in the Wildfire Decision Support System. So right there, we got dual approval. Both the Bureau and the Wildland Fire Service will be approvers within the decision support, within the WFDS decision. Cost thresholds, there's no longer any cost notifications that need to be made. So before those cost thresholds were at $5 million and at $10 million, meaning that anything below $5 million, we just managed. We didn't have to make any additional notifications. Anything above $5 million, we had to make notification to the state director. Anything over $10 million, we had to make notification to the national director through the state director. we no longer have to do any cost notification. So that doesn't mean that cost isn't being tracked. I hope it's going to be tracked somewhere, somehow. It's just, there's not going to have to be a cost notification that gets made. So that's a good thing. I think, you know, depending on who you talk to. The agency administrator qualification right there. Bureaus will no longer require the AADM qual. The fire service will work with the bureaus to provide wildland fire training as requested to support filling the bureau representative role on wildland fire. And again, WFDSS training, the fire service will design, schedule, and deliver WFDSS training for all users. So I just had to put in a plug. I never thought WFDSS training would be front and center on any kind of document like this, and there it is. And we were already planning it. We were weeks ahead of this document when it came out. We've been planning this for weeks, so makes us kind of look good. But many of you, maybe this is the first time you looked at it. I hope not. Are there questions on this? Okay. All right. Again, the document that came out last week further describes how far down the Wildland Fire Service pushes these authorities, whether they go down to the unit fire chief, whether they stay at, or the unit FMO, whether they stay at the unit FMO, or whether the unit FMO can delegate them further down from that. So I would highly encourage you guys to take a look at that document if you're interested in authorities as well, because that is the one that really kind of shows how those new authorities are going to be filtered down through the fire service, through the unit FMO position, and through their chain of command. Okay, so I've been talking for about an hour, so let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break and come back in here at 10 after the hour, and we'll get into the next portion. Thank you, everybody. I don't think so.
Good.
I mean, this is the only time I'm using the PowerPoint, so that's my fault for making the PowerPoint.
Oh,
Everything else.
It was a focus. Stream was a focus.
I'm good now. I don't want to recommend.
All right.
Yes, no, once you get it rolling, Ben,
Yep.
I'm that guy that you don't take the wheels off the bus. You let the bus roll. Give them the bus and going exactly where they go.
Like after the screen of focus and the right one focus, so.
Looks like the emphasis is on that.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're solid, because once that's decided, then all the decision moves to the product.
And that's why that memo, I think, is even more important. I mean, right? Because we have the RMPs right now that often, in some cases, we don't have a lot, right? But we have cases where we have RMPs that authorize fire management. And if we have a secretary memo or any other direction saying we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, and that's what that is. When I first heard the words that could be the agency administrator, I freaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, there's decisions, and I'm like, that's where that comes in, right? Like, we're basically saying our fire management plan is solid.
So for the folks that are online, we're a little bit delayed here. As soon as folks step in, we'll get going again. I'll just unmute ourselves here. And so we're going to go ahead and get started again. And for the folks that are either online or we still got some folks kind of coming into the room here. So we're going to go back to the agenda real quick. I do want to make sure because I do kind of bounce around a little bit, especially getting going until I kind of find my sweet spot. So I talked FAMOF and WFDS, talk to profile. We will get into the profile, talk to Red Book, who approves WFDS decisions, the simulation briefing and the local WFDS procedures. That's something I rely more on the group, you know, for processes of what you guys do locally, for when you have a fire that a decision needs to be done for. So as we get into that, I know that decision those discussions happen organically, but kind of be thinking about that. And now that everyone's kind of filtering back into the room, I guess between Kate and Ben, you know, when I'm telling the process that you guys use here locally for authoring a WFDS decision. Can you maybe explain what you've done on past fires or what that looks like, what you would do if you make the notification and kind of get that together?
Yeah, first of all, I guess you just decide that there is a need for WFDS off of the elements there and get our key players together, get your box. That'll trigger all of the players that are involved in the decision. Make those notifications and really start getting input. We went through, was that how many years ago, Dylan? We went through and updated all of our.
That was 3 years ago now, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, we did a big update to Spatial Fire Planning Service.
So a lot of that stuff's available and, yeah, work with Nick, work with, really kind of a team effort, I guess. So remember, Nick's really helpful.
Yeah.
Super helpful. And Kate, you did a decision last year.
Yeah.
Or like a week before you started.
It was Gothic and then Cat Canyon, John was Nick.
Yep.
Yep.
Tag on to what I said.
Yeah, so, just a lot of coordination with, our cooperators and on my level with Nick a lot, so I work with him to passing the decision back and forth, make sure everything's good. And yeah, it's just a lot of conversation.
All of the pre-work is done,
Yeah, a lot of,
so.
yeah.
Katie, have you guys did you guys do one off that last, couple of years ago fire, or have you done decision here?
I haven't done the decision here yet. I think the last one was probably mahogany. And I was kind of transitioning, I was still a natural resource staff officer at that point, so I haven't really gotten an opportunity to. I've done a lot of training, but I haven't had like a real live situation. Ready for it.
Yeah, you trained for it. Steve, you guys done any?
We haven't had a decision with the 2.0. Our last decision was a couple of years ago. So we haven't had anything, nothing popped up this year with the new system, so. It's all theoretical for us training, so.
It tells you who, if it touches who's involved.
Yeah, and that's pretty
That's
cool, right? You
getting
just
loaded.
throw the box and it pulls them in, so there's some things that seem, but we haven't had any real life. That's all I'm saying, so I don't know how it goes in the real life, so.
They said, heard rumors of a minimum required for with this, like. Cal fire is 10 acres or bigger, that kind of thing.
Is that the
Yeah,
criteria?
nothing other than what's been in the red book as far as just that differentiation between, really, it's initial response to extended attack. I mean, what does that line mean? Whether that's, in some cases that could be 48 hours, in some cases that could maybe look more like 96 hours.
Yeah, because I've had 200 acre fires where we didn't do one and
Yep.
10 acre fires where it's the
Yep.
first 10 minutes.
And I think that's why we've been adverse to setting just a hard and fast, because there are fires. I mean, obviously, we've had 10,000 acre fires in Elko that have gone out in 2 days, Do we need to do a WFDSS decision for a fire that's 98% contained and we're not doing it? No, so yeah, there needs to be some flexibility for sure.
The way I used to hear it compared was if it's gonna take an IEP, you're usually needing to look this. It's enough time. I don't know, that's what it used to.
Well, yeah, and if you go with the definition of extended attack, right? And what's the definition of an IEP? Some people's definition of an IEP is I filled out my incident organizer by pen. Here, take a picture of it. That's your IEP.
Yeah.
To others, it's a full
CBD
lot.
is, we did a 209.
209.
Mm-hmm.
No, it should do 209 for every fire.
Nope.
Dispatch will.
No.
Yeah, depends. Well, I guess
It's gotta be 300 acres in brush, 100 acres in timber.
So, yep.
Yep.
Yep, it is, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. And that would, 90% of that, if you want to use that 300 and 100 acre, that would probably get you. But there's still gonna be those wildland urban interface fires, right? That burn 20 acres and they burn 50 houses and 20 acres, and you're still gonna want to have a decision for those type of fires too.
And I think it's kind of similar over there, it might be here, is that a DPA that was released to the state, so it wasn't fed, but that's still part of it. For all that part, even though I think had no operational control of the fire.
Right.
So it was more of the fire personnel or more of like an agency administrator, agency rep. Basically, we go to fires, bureau reps.
Yep.
Kind of like what our line officers are gonna do now.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. No, good question. And thanks for kind of highlighting that too, because that's important, right? People think, well, yeah, I know how to do WFDSS decision, but now how do I get involved? Well, most of the times that's either making sure your FMO, your duty officer, whoever's, involved operationally kind of understands what that process looks like. But then pre-planning and knowing, our interagency group, what does that trigger? When do we come together? And, it doesn't necessarily have to be the duty officers, right? We got multiple fire planners within this group too. At what point, do you guys just start working together and saying, hey, we've got multiple decisions going on. Let's start parsing these out and figuring out who's responsible for what and making sure nothing gets dropped or whatever. So yeah, there's still going to be some local processes that you guys need to identify as well. So, okay, so let's get back into WFDSS itself. And before we get into WFDSS itself, again, I want to highlight just a few things. Again, the link tree that is linked on the agenda, part of the email. All of the links that we're going to talk about are generally up in this top section. So the WFDS link, FAMLOF link. If you want to request WFDS support or fire modeling, this is the link right here. You click on that, it takes you to their Microsoft form. Every year, WFDS has a paper backup. So the policy is that if WFDS is down and you still have a fire that is burning, there is a PDF form that's supposed to be completed. Once WFDS is back up, you go into WFDS, you do the decision, and you plug it into the computer. So this WFDS backup is just a PDF. Depending on, I wouldn't recommend using this. I mean, if you're having a fire and WFDS is down, call me as a GAE. That's one of my jobs, is to interface between the users and the WFDS system. And when there's periods of downtime or whatever, we report that. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time putting information into paper WFDS, knowing as long as you've covered the information, knowing that you're going to get it into WFDS as soon as WFDS comes up, that's the important part, right? So don't spin your wheels copying and pasting a lot of stuff into this PDF form. As long as you've gone through the process, that's what's important. But then you need to get it into WFDS as soon as WFDS comes back up. But there is a WFDS backup. There is a WFDS backup that you can get into if you need it. There's RMA dashboard, IFTDIS fire modeling as well. All of those are linked here. Spatial fire planning service, that is a link as well that you guys should be familiar with. Kate is the fire planner, is also your data manager, which allows Kate to not only update the shapes that are in there, but also the text that goes into those shapes. All of that information is what gets imported into your WFDS decision. So this is how we keep your WFDS decisions current, valid, and active, is by updating Spatial Fire Planning Service, and that's done outside of WFDS on an annual date. All of the training links that we have are going to be here as well too, so these will all be available to you. Again, the FireNet shared drive, I'm going to click on that right now just because I do want to highlight a few things. You'll see there's a lot of information in here. This directory right here is all of the WFDS Classic incidents that have been done in Nevada, going all the way back to 2015. So any WFDS decision that was done in Nevada between 2015 and 2024, you can find in here. I'll just give you guys a little hint for ease of use. Download this KMZ right here. You can look at it in Google Earth. It'll tell you what the decision name is, and then you just go into the directory and find your decision alphabetized by name. So that's probably the easiest way to use it. You can also download those old decisions out of WFDS now as well. So either way you want to do it, but this is a spot where you can get all of the old archives as well. And then also, just as a plug, all of my basic WFDS, all of my WFDS knowledge lives in this drive as well. Every presentation, everything I've put together since 2020 is in this directory. So if you want, I mean, I don't know what archived WFDS presentations would buy anybody, but all of the information that I've used for this WFDS training is archived all the way back to 2020 in here as well. So you can get that out of this shared directory. But all this is available in the shared drive as well, that's available on this link. So we're going to go into WFDS itself. You guys good getting on the Wi-Fi?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else need to get on Wi-Fi? I think all you guys work here, right? So everybody else is good. All right. So when we get into WFDS, and I'm going to click on my WFDS link here because I want to go to the launch page. So from this launch page, you can access WFDS production. You can access WFDS EDU. And you can also access WFDS office hours. There's another platform you can get into WFDS. I'm not going to talk about that, but between production and EDU, this is where 98% of the WFDS users are going to access everything they need to through WFDS right here. So we're going to get into EDU today. You can tell EDU because it's got the green banner going across the top. And whenever you log into WFDS, you're going to have to go into FAMOF and authenticate your FAMOF account. tell what you're with Department of Interior. Be patient with the map. It does take a little while to load. I told you, WFDSS is definitely a spatially driven product now, and this map is right in the middle of everything. Everything is driven off of this map. So again, you'll notice the green banner. That means that we're an EDU. If we were in WFDSS production, it'd be a different colored banner. And we are going to start by going into our profile. And this is part of the training. I see most people in here have computers. Hopefully you are. If you're logged into WFDSS, just work along with me. If you're doing other work, by all means, do other work. You can poke your head up and look at me whenever you need to. But this is kind of how I designed the training to be interactive with you guys on your computers. So when you get into the profile settings, take a look, make sure that everything is current. The unit, most frustrating thing in the world, don't worry about the unit. I know I'm gonna say this, and I know that I have the same attention span all of you have. Only half of you are hearing me right now, probably. You can spend all the time in the world adjusting this unit. You log out of WFDSS, you log back in, and it's right back to no unit. So don't even bother with the unit right here. Normally you would put your unit in there, but WFDSS has a bug where it keeps flashing back, so don't worry about it. That's not a big deal. You do want to make sure that you are in your geographic area, the Great Basin. If you ever go to another geographic area and you need to use WFDSS in that other geographic area, you should be able to adjust your geographic area in your profile setting, and you'll be able to use whatever you need to in that geographic area. So that's a little WFDSS trick. All you have to do is change your geographic area, and you can use WFDSS from whatever geographic area you're in. But when you're here, go ahead and set it to the Great Basin, because what that does is that filters down the WFDSS list users who are shown that they're in the Great Basin. You're going to want to make sure that your phone number is current in there. And then in my case, and for anybody else, you're going to want to check off that you're an approver. If you're not an approver, and approvers used to require the AADM qualification. Now that the AADM qualification is no longer a thing, being an approver is just a position of record. So if you're in a unit FMO position, you're an approver. If you're in a field manager position, you're an approver, right? In training, you can go ahead and check off that you are or not an approver. But see, if I check off that it's going to tell me that I will no longer be able to approve decisions on fires. I'm going to say yes. And then if I check yes again, it says you certify that you meet your agency's policy to act as an agency administrator. And with this, you're responsible for reviewing the decision, writing the rationale, and improving a decision prior to publication. So you have to agree to all that. So in training, not that big of a deal, check off approver, but in production, if you don't have that position, you shouldn't check off that you're an approver. Unfortunately, WFDSS doesn't have a check and balance system. So it doesn't go back into IQCS and reference training qualifications or anything like that. It just knows that you've checked the approver box as to whether or not you're an approver.
Can that be delegated to duty FMOs? Like a couple of us, like me and Ben, are listed as duty FMOs to cover for Tyler and back of him. Is that a Tyler question? Or have you heard that's gonna be?
I don't think, I thought WFDSS couldn't be delegated any further than the unit FMO position.
Additional authorities just for the acting FMO.
Yeah.
But there's Tyler now, but I don't think for WFDSS. That's not in our current FMO delegation.
It's not.
Yeah.
Never leave.
But if you are a unit FMO or any other position that's going to be an approver on a WFDSS decision, this is the box that you need to check in WFDSS to make you an approver in WFDSS. Otherwise, WFDSS doesn't recognize you as an approver unless this box is checked. So in training, like I said, I check it off on training just because I'm doing these trainings and I want to maintain an approver. But if you're in production, and everything we do in the training side, you're going to need to do on the production side as well. So I'm going to show you in training today, and then at some point you need to sign into production and do the same thing on the production side. Yeah,
So Tyler is the only approver then for Southern Nevada?
That would be the Bureau representatives as well.
Well, the Bureau representatives, but don't you need both?
yes.
So if you're out, and you can't delegate it, jump online and approve it really quick, or,
That's what we're figuring out.
Okay.
That wasn't in the 1203 document.
yeah, no, I noticed that when I read it, I was like, okay, so who's the backup? Cause we're all gone, all should
I'm just getting in behind
Okay,
the Lexus here.
okay,
There, we have a training set up, right?
Yes,
more to come
More to come. We're still figuring it out.
with everything.
With everything.
we haven't gotten into that incident yet, so just log into the training, just log into with this EDU. Okay, any other questions on profiles, anything like that that we need to do here? While you're in this tab, you can go through and look at all the other tabs too. I mean, a couple of the, like I talked about, phone number, make sure you got a good phone number in there where somebody can get a hold of you. Don't put a front desk, don't put a dispatch phone number, don't put, you know, whatever. Make sure that's your cell phone number. You can check off the get email notifications, get text notifications, but again, that's not a capability in the system yet. I just check it off for, you know, wishes and dreams, I guess. I hope that in my perfect WFDS world, we would have a WFDS that could send out an email notification. Secondary phone number, I don't put a secondary phone number in there just because it gets confusing. You can, but I've always had my cell phone number in there because that's my job, is to let people get a hold of me when they need for WFDS. Secondary email accounts are handy though. Like I use my FireNet account just because there's times when I want to fire, you know, when I want to fire, my mind switches over, I'm on my FireNet account. You know, I don't use my work account for anything else. I use my FireNet account. When I get back to work, I switch over to my BLM account and I don't use my FireNet account unless, you know, it's something else. So that's kind of how my mind works. I don't know how everybody else is, but that's how my mind works and that's how I use it. So you can set all that up in the profile page. You can also, as a GAE, I don't think you guys have this tab, and your system preferences, you can tell the initial page where you want it to go to. So I always like to go to incidents. Default map view, you can set that up to either be a national map view or zone in on the geographic area. And then again, this area is under development. So anytime you see this area is under development, that means that it's being worked on and you won't be able to access it. So we're going to go back to home from here. And I'm going to just go to the EDU. So it's going to sign in again. And again, be patient with it, let the map load. You can click away all you want while the wheel is spinning, but it's not going to do anything. So just be patient and realize that it takes a little bit. And we're going to spend some time here because I want folks to get comfortable with the map interface, but I'm going to zoom in and as soon as it gets loaded up here. This is taking a little longer than usual. There. You'll know when it's working. You guys saw what it did with me. You know, you won't get any of the graphics in the map, nothing will load. It'll just kind of sit there for a while. So if you're working along with me, what I want you guys to do is zoom in down here and go over to Creech. You'll notice just to the west of Creech should be a incident in there. It's labeled 2025 Nevada BLM, Southern Nevada District. We're going to go to that decision. So if you don't see that decision, that's fine. I'm going to click on go to that decision. And while the decision is loading, we're going to spend probably the next 20 minutes or so just kind of messing around with the map in the first tab in here. Kate, I'm gonna ask another favor of you. I have made Kate a point of contact on this decision. And Kate, could you go through and start adding everybody else that's in this room as an editor into this decision that you can find? If, like, that are in this room?
Yeah. I just was trying to get into the training side of things.
Okay.
I need access granted apparently.
Ah, gotcha.
I didn't either.
Okay.
I just did the product, yeah.
Okay, so during the break, yeah, if any of you need your EDU access renewed, come up to me next break and I'll get that renewed for you, okay? If you can sign into production, what we're gonna be doing for the next few minutes, you can do just as easily on the production side as you can on the EDU side. So just log into production for now, and then we'll get you into the EDU side. So I'm still waiting for the map to load here though too, because that's not. Let me hit this one more time. Yeah, so the thing, there we go. The thing with the WFDSS accounts is you have to log into it at least once annually. So it's easy on the production side, right? Because we're in production all summer long. But on the EDU side, if you forget to log into EDU at all during that 1 year period, it'll lock your account up. But that's something I can go in there and fix very easily. So what I want you guys to do, if you're working along with me, first off, we need to get people into the incident. So I'm going to spend some time adding folks into the incident as a collaborator. But for now, I'm just going to talk you guys through this until I can get Kate added and everybody else. But so basically within WFDSS, you have points of contact now. There's a single point of contact. So that used to be the WFDSS author in the past. That role is now the WFDSS point of contact. And Kate, as the WFDSS point of contact, can add any other collaborators into this decision that she needs to, including fire behavior analysts and approvers as the point of contact. But there can only be one point of contact on every fire. So if you are working on a decision and you are that point of contact and you're going to be leaving for the weekend, or you're going on admin leave or something like that, you need to go into WFDSS and you need to designate who that point of contact is going to be. You either need to add the user in there, or you manually put the user, you need to add the user and then check this box to make them a point of contact. So that's one of the things in WFDSS that we have to make sure of, because what happens is a lot of times somebody may be the point of contact on day 5 or 6 of an incident, and then on day 12 of an incident, they take an assignment and they're gone. They're still the point of contact. They're the only person that can add collaborators up until somebody else gets in there. Myself as a GAE, I can get into that decision and I can add additional users if we need to. I can also make those edits to change the point of contact over to whoever needs to be changed to. But if you're not listed as the point of contact or a GAE, you don't have that control to do that. So it takes an extra phone call. So keep that in mind when you're doing WFDSS decisions. If you start a decision as the point of contact, make sure that you either stay the point of contact through the life of the decision, or if you're not going to be around to be the point of contact, that between you or the approver, you've designated who that point of contact is going to be. Okay, so that's one of the big things within WFDSS as well. The other thing within WFDSS, and again, what I want you guys, and I'm going to move my bar up here, is just the map layers. So we are using a training decision that we set up for last year. And within that training decision, we kind of did a few things, as in drawing a planning area boundary. But this is a decision that we're going to work on today as well. So Here, as soon as I can stop talking, I'm gonna let you guys, and what I want you to look at is just the map. So look at all these different layers that are available within the map layer. And again, it's pretty standard, it's pretty standard as far as the map information that you can see, but rather than me talking through this, I find it's easier just with you guys working in WFDS just to spend 15, 20 minutes looking through each of the map layers and figuring out what data is available to you through the WFDS map. And then also when we get into the Spatial Fire Planning Service data, you'll be able to see what's available in Spatial Fire Planning Service as well. But kind of be thinking about, everything that it takes to get the day set up too, because everything that we're doing as far as being able to connect your computer to internet, being able to log in and do this in a group setting, being able to set up a Teams meeting to maybe do this remotely. These are all skill sets that will come in handy during the summer when you're sitting down to do a WFDS decision for your fire as well. So be thinking about that as well and putting that in the mindset. But what I want you guys to do is just spend a few minutes going through each of these map layers, looking at the map layers that are in this WFDS map. And you don't have to be in the decision. You don't have to be in the incident. You can be just in the map. Take a look at those map layers and just get a good feel for all of the different information that's available in that map. And that'll give me some time to take care of some of these accounts and get people added into here as well. Okay? Any questions? Yeah. We'll reconvene in about 10 o'clock.
Approved for EDU, please.
Yes. Yes, for those of you who do need approvals, now would be the great time to go into FAMOFF and make your request, because I can just start going through there and approving those requests as need be as well. Hey, how do you spell your name?
You talking to me, Dylan?
No, I was talking to Kate. There's Kate. Yeah.
Enter the email a person could bother your request. That's you, right, Dylan?
Yes. Okay, Kate, you should have EDU now.
Did you see me on there?
I haven't looked for you yet. Hang on a second. I have a process that I have to go through in order for this to be done.
Just add your role for this exercise, right, Dylan?
Yeah, you're gonna want editor in production and editor in the EDU.
I just clicked my approver when we were doing this and because of the shift.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still gonna be able to edit, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there. Yeah, it's just the only way you can be an approver is to have that approval.
Okay, I clicked it as you're changing it with the new direction coming out into. Oh.
Firenet, okay.
See. The other two.
It's the view. It's, yeah, there's another one, there's UAT.
That's.
UAT is for developers.
So it's an access.
Dylan, I have a question.
Yeah,
So got into EDU. How do you? Let's see, it says find records from earlier discovered within the last 6 months, but you weren't brought in the.
just use the map. I just use map.
You just use the map.
Mhm. David, you're next. Okay, this is you right here, David Carrera.
That's me.
Okay, yeah, you're next. You're still in California Desert District, man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I can approve that. That's outside of my zone, just joking. I can approve anything.
Get me next tomorrow. I went in there for fraud and for EDU.
Okay.
That's weird, trying to add my fire.
Have it adjustments.
Got you.
All right. I think I got all my approvals caught up. So if you just requested it, you should have it.
Yeah, nothing.
Change.
Yep.
I should have one for you.
Yeah, I think I approved it, didn't I? Yeah,
I
yeah.
did it like an hour ago.
Well, I just approved everything, so. Yeah, so another setting too is logos versus titles.
So yeah, there's three. Oh,
Change yours to, change it to logos and you can see.
Why I never did this before?
Is it? It's so weird to you. This one. Yeah, but yeah, there's three.
I got fired on my personal note.
Oh my gosh,
Which is UAP,
that's wow.
WFDSS Next-Gen, EDU.
It's a big step.
So these three.
I mean, because I
You guys
feel
don't.
like it says fire under you.
Yeah.
well, you just looked at your folder.
That's all people, you're BLM.
Your titles.
But not that BLM.
Yeah, that's why it's not changing.
You could change, you said the titles, Dylan?
Yeah, usually, I thought the view changed for me. It's not changing over here, so. But yeah, when you end FAMOF, it can be,
Yeah, I'm off, yeah. 'Cause
so I changed mine to tiles and it does that. Then I changed mine to logos.
what's the logo look like different from the training when it goes to logos?
Well, what you're looking for is this, right?
The
So
EDU, yeah.
EDU is training. WFDSS Next-Gen OAT is just standard, which is what we're using. So
What's the UAT?
UAT is a developer version. It's a platform that if you're helping the developers test out bugs or whatever, you get into UAT.
Jeremy, are you a collaborator? What's that? Are you on with this?
Let's see, 'cause I can't. I wonder if I switch to
I
tiles.
just sent Dylan a request, so we'll see.
You did?
I just did, yeah.
I sent a request too, so let me know if you got it or didn't.
I did see.
Gee, just got approved. I don't see you, Jimmy.
Get back, my computer's moving slow on my house.
Okay, I'll keep doing that though. I mean, if you need to get in there, but so now that we're in, again, you guys should be able to, again, this is just from any screen. Find the incident and then go to decision. And what this allows us to do is this allows us to go right into the decision without having to create. And in most cases, this is how you're going to access your decisions, like even in production, right? You don't create an incident in WFDS. Irwin, it reads the incidents created in Irwin, you know, through CAD, through that whole process, and it pulls it into WFDS. So you should never have to create an incident in WFDS. If you need to do a WFDS decision and you log in and you can't find your incident, chances are it's a Wildcat/Irwin issue, and you need to talk to your dispatch center about doing something in Wildcat, pushing a button in Wildcat, or doing something in Wildcat in order to publish that to Irwin. That's what needs to happen. So just keep that in mind, that all of the information in WFDS is driven from Irwin and driven from the information that's in Irwin specifically, but then later on through the course of the incident, it's that incident feature service as well, and all the information that's going into the incident feature service. So it's being kind of buggy with me this morning, I'll be honest with you. When you notice, you know, how long it takes to load this map, it's taken me a couple of times hitting refresh. So maybe that's a function of all of us being in with the CDU. I don't know. Maybe that's just a bug. But just keep in mind that's kind of being a little buggy this morning. That's why I keep having to hit refresh when I'm in the incident. You can have multiple people working in the incident. It's a good idea to make sure that if you're working in an incident with multiple people, that you're all kind of working in your own tab, basically, is the best way to do it. You don't want to have multiple users editing the same tab, because what that tab does is when you have a user in there editing that tab, when that user saves those edits and publishes that tab or makes it ready for publication, it uploads all of the edits into the cloud, right, into the WFDS cloud, and then all of that text becomes viewable by all of the different editors that are in there at that time. If you have multiple people working in a single tab, uploading information at the same time, there's a potential you could confuse it and have a conflict. So best practice is just don't have multiple people working in that section. There's a few things that we can do here, you know. One is look at the planning area. WFDS automatically just draws a planning area box. I think this is a 5 square mile box around an incident, and that becomes the initial planning area. But we know that for most of our fires, that initial planning area is going to need to be either a little bigger or something else, right? So you can go through, there's a couple different things you can take a look at here. One is not under the national reference, it's fire safety. Fire boundaries, under boundaries. Even me, I have to kind of figure it out every now and then too. So within boundaries, this is all of like jurisdictional unit. Okay, so I know a lot of times, bam, right? We need to know whose boundary, whose jurisdiction is it? In this case, you guys have not a lot of jurisdictional authorities right around here, but you obviously have, what's the jurisdiction up here? DOE, DOD. So you guys have a lot of uniqueness up here that nobody else has to deal with.
So the jurisdiction and the protection is still two different things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. They're still jurisdictional. Like I said, if you go into the layers here,
We'll have the protection.
you can see here, right?
That's still loaded.
So we got protection units and jurisdictional units. So jurisdictional units are still the important one though, right? Protection units, I mean, anybody can be a protecting unit for any other agency. It's a jurisdictional unit that's the important thing that you need to know, because that is what goes back to the overarching LRMP. And that's going to decide what drives how you respond to that fire, is whether or not what jurisdiction it is. So you got jurisdictional units in there. One of the first things that we need to do is we need to start thinking about our planning area, right? So to do that, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to uncheck all of those. Okay, so we have our jurisdictional boundary in here. We have our planning area boundary. I'm going to go back over into the map. I don't want to zoom in there too far because I want to take off that jurisdictional boundary, because I'm comfortable with who the jurisdictional units are. And now we're going to be looking at pod boundaries, right? So a couple of years ago, we went through, we did the exercise of drawing pod boundaries. Here we can see what those boundaries are. And in our case, sorry, it takes me a little while to scroll through some of this stuff. You can see here that it looks like we have an area that's got a couple different pod boundaries on either side. So just as a refresher, remember when we drew our pod boundaries were drawn with the concept that they are a pre-identified planning area, right? Not saying they have to be used as a pre-identified planning area, but that was the concept we went forward with when we drew these pod boundaries. So by overlaying the pod boundaries on your map, you can take a look and see what that spatial extent is. And what we're looking at is, what does our planning area need to be for this fire? So in our case, it looks like we've got pods to the south here, which again, gonna have to go through. We got a couple smaller pods down here. And in this case, our planning area boundary, we could very easily just come up here, start drawing, saying this is going to be our planning area. This is going to be our current planning area, and we are going to draw a polygon, and we are going to just roughly.
So follow the pods on that, because the way that those are set up there is those within those pods, they're pre-identified strategies based on the hazards. So the pod is where we're gonna stop it as the way that those are designed.
Right.
The terminology is different now, I guess, on what we're gonna call those. It was confined, but obviously that's gonna be a little different now. A way we'll define that, but it'll be similar.
Yes.
Yes.
There's so many changes that we need to make to our vernacular and our terminology. I don't even know where to start right now, So, but this is one where you do that, but you can also do that just by drawing, right? So, like here, for example, I want to draw the polygon.
So it only shows the lines inside the polygon.
And I want to get my hand. I can draw that.
So it only shows the lines inside the pink box, and then we can draw that new box for planning area. All along, and then it'll expand those.
Yeah, right now it's only clipping what's inside the planning area boundary.
Draw tools for planning area.
Yep.
The polygon. Oh.
I just got in, Dylan, where's, the incident should just pop up in here, right? I just got in, it just let me the training. Where the incident's up by Bridgewater, I'm not seeing it.
You're not in training.
Oh,
Black bar.
training side.
Okay, so David, are you drawing a planning area?
Yeah, I'm trying to, it just keeps, the only thing it does is gives me a little yellow box, and I clicked again and it gave me another yellow box.
Mm-hmm. So
I think it's just going too slow and I'm clicking too fast, because now my computer's smoking.
so here's where you go in, you draw the planning area. You can use the pod boundaries. So there's a couple different ways you can do this, and it seems kind of buggy again right now. So I may just kind of talk through this. You can select the pods. The danger with selecting the pods is that we found this up in Elko last year, is if you select the pods, most of the pods were clipped to roads. So if you want to include a buffer off of those roads, you're going to want to actually draw the polygon using the pod boundaries, but you're not going to want to just clip it from the pod boundaries, because that'll give you the road itself. And what the buffer that I'm talking about is, if we're going to use a road for a planning area boundary, you never want to use the actual road itself as your boundary in WFDSS. You always want to give those, give it a 300, 400, 500 yard buffer. That way, if on the fire, they decide to use the road as a control location, as a line, as they burn off of it or something, you don't have to worry about your perimeter exceeding the planning area boundary. You need to make sure that you have yourself that slight bit of buffer in there. So that's one way you can do it. You can also enable snapping. You can do all that through here, but just using the drawing tool is the easiest way. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to use that drawing tool one more time.
Being super glitchy.
It is being glitchy, and I apologize for that. It's being even more glitchier than normal, it seems. Yeah. Yeah.
We found every time that we've done a training, and we've all been in the same training platform, like that it just totally wigs out and they can't handle it.
And maybe that might be it. Maybe that might be it, is we have too many people in it. I don't know. But I did want to spend some time going through there, because that is an important thing, and being able to draw that planning area boundary is important as well. So let me get back into it.
It doesn't work better in some browsers than others, right? Like the Microsoft Exchange or Chrome or.
Chrome has always been told, we were told to use Chrome. It works best in Chrome. Yeah.
I don't know why, but mine doesn't have a drawing tool option on the
Shane,
bottom.
I've been trying to add you as a collaborator, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me go back and try to add you in.
It's gonna work better in my iPad. Then I can use the pen to draw it. Boom.
So yeah, there's something going on, because right now I should be able to click on polygon and it should come up with the crosshairs, and I should be able to draw a polygon right here, and it's not allowing me to do any of that. So, and I am an editor in there, so that's a little concerning, but we'll go ahead and continue, because we can use this planning area as a boundary.
There's no drawing tool in the iPad version.
I bet.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even try on the iPad.
I was trying, yeah.
Yeah, there's no mobile capability with WFDSS. That's right. You may be able to approve a decision, but outside of that, I don't think you can do anything on an iPad yet. Yeah. Yes.
I tried to add Shane. I don't see his name on here. Not sure. Or as a collaborator. He's logged in.
Right. Did you just request it today?
Yes.
Yes. Sometimes it takes like an hour or two. Okay. So yeah, just be patient with that too. So while we're looking at that, we can go in. So analysis, I'm just going to keep scrolling through the tabs here. It's a little concerning. I'll come back and take a look at the draw thing, but with the planning area tool, the planning area is really important, right? The planning area is really what starts the WFDSS decision. And that's why the exercise that we went back through a couple of years ago with the pod boundaries, I think is important, because in my position as a fire planner, if I know the planning area boundary, I can basically do most of your decision for you. I can write a good WFDSS decision if I know what that planning area boundary is going to look like and what the values within that planning area boundary are going to be. So by using the pod area boundaries and following that concept that the pod boundaries are pre-identified planning area boundaries, you can draw yourself a planning area boundary that either incorporates those pod boundaries, or if between FMO and agency, bureau representative, they have decided that they want to do another planning area boundary based off of something entirely different, that's within their decision space to make, right? So they can do that as well. But it's going to take some coordination with editors. But as an editor, once you have that planning area boundary set up and you can start crafting your decision from there, everything else falls into place. Because what that planning area does is it goes back in and it does a spatial inventory. So if we go back to the first tab, if we go back into spatial inventory, we can go into here, say current, generate an SI. It's going to spin the wheels for a few minutes. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. And what it's doing is it's calculating a spatial inventory for everything that's within this box right now. And once it does that, it saves it to the decision. That's what it's doing right now. So just be patient with it, let it load. And then you can see here that we want to look at the one that was done on 4/21/26 with the map. Okay, you notice, remember how I said map is front and center in every WFDSS decision? That's great, right? Until it's not great and you don't want to read the map anymore. If you don't want to read the map anymore, you can just click on that button right there and it slides the map out of the way and it creates more of a text screen. And you can see that this is a spatial inventory that was completed. There are a total of 51 items. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger list. And you can see that within that inventory, within that planning area boundary, it clipped all of this information just based off of the map layers that are in WFDSS. So none of this is even based off of Spatial Fire Planning Service, which has all the other natural values at risk and other values loaded up. This is just based off of all of the information that's in the map. So you can see here, you can go through and look at the inventory of how many roads you have, railroads, population density, snag hazards, suppression difficulty index. All of this information is calculated for your planning area boundary and is included in that spatial inventory here based off of your planning area boundary. Again, you can get the map out of the way, you can move the map out of the way, but that is always in this layer here. And then just working across the tab, we're going to go into analysis, right? We can do FS Pro in WFDSS. It takes an elevated level as just an editor in WFDSS. You do not have access to do FS Pro modeling. You need the fire behavior role within WFDSS in order to access. That lady's from Elko. I see her every day at the office, and then I see her down here. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, how weird is that? That was just so random. So random. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. If there's any existing analysis that have been done for the fire within FS Pro, you will find them in here. But remember, if anything is done in IFTDIS or anything outside of WFDSS, none of that modeling will be included in the decision itself. It'll be included as screenshots that support the decision and they're inserted into those sections, but there won't be any actual modeling done within WFDSS. So the relative risk is always, a big part of the decision as well. So for most of you, is everybody that's in the decision, are you able to tab through the decision like I'm doing right now too? David, what are you doing?
It won't even let me move the map. Every time I touch it or try to zoom out, it just keeps moving.
Okay, all right. But for everybody else, are you kind of in the decision and working through the tabs like I am too? Okay, so that's good, because that's what I want you guys to spend some time working in now. So relative risk is basically a mirror of the PMS 236, the risk and complexity assessment that is an NWCG approved form. It's been part of our vernacular for about 4 or 5 years now, right? Maybe longer than that. But the PMS 236 is in WFDSS. And part of what goes into that is available in the guide too. So this is the one thing that I haven't spent a lot of time talking to, and I am going to spend some time talking to this guide real quick before we get any further into our discussion, because I think this guide is important. And first off, what I wanted to highlight is all of those items that I was talking about in the WFDSS scorecard. Right, part of my tasking from the FMO group from their fall meeting was to include each of those items in the WFDSS guide as a checklist. So now, not only are they a scorecard, but they're also a checklist. So I'm hitting both boxes there. So that checklist is in the very first part of the WFDSS guide, and we're going to spend some time going through the checklist. But within this WFDSS guide, this is a PDF that's available on the FireNet site too. It's set up very similar to WFDSS. You can see all the different tabs here, where if you click on any of these tabs within this guide, it will take you to a hyperlink within the guide and take you to that section. So right now, we're in relative risk, and this guide is going to be available to everybody. The information that's in the guide in relative risk basically is what goes into your WFDSS decision, right? You need to craft this language specific to your fire though. So use the guide. You can copy out of the guide, paste in the decision, and then edit in the decision whatever is specific to your fire. And you can do that for every single one of those elements. So for relative risk, probability assessment, it's breaking out what is low, what is moderate, what is high. All of this information is available in the guide. And what I'd like you guys to do now is within the decision, going back in here, just start working on populating information. And again, remember, you don't want to have a lot of people making edits in multiple sections. So if you're in this section and you're working, there's hazards, there's values, and there's all this information. And I'm not going to spend, this is part of the training, is you guys being able to work yourself through the information and being able to populate the information for your specific incident, right? So whether you're in this incident or if you're in another incident, no big deal. But just work at bouncing back and forth between the guide and what's in WFDSS and looking at what needs to go in there. And then we do need to populate each of these with something. So Kate, if you can be the one editor who populates something in each of these fields in here, it doesn't have to be word perfect. If you want to do some wordsmithing, you can. But if everybody can kind of maybe help Kate, would be the best way to maybe add some information. That's basically how we do these WFDSS. I don't know, we've done WFDSS in a lot of different ways, but I've been where we have a group of people and we're just on a screen and you got one person doing the editing and you got everybody else. Yeah, I agree with that. Type this in, type that in. So this is kind of how you would be doing a WFDSS decision as well. Any thoughts?
Last one I did was on the hood of a truck and I manually just typed stuff in.
Right.
Was horrible.
Yeah.
But it meant the intent. There's a 100-acre fire on it.
Yep. So again, I'm going to zoom into this a little bit more, but this guide has pretty much everything you're going to need. So as you're working down through the relative risk, again, what time of the season are you in? Are you late in the season? Are you middle of the season? Are you very early in the season? That's what's going to, affect your complexity rating through here. Barriers to fire spread. Are they low? Are they moderate? Are they high? You can look at potential control locations, right? We put that map together a couple of years ago that with the potential control locations falling back on the RMA analytics. those are all different levels of analysis that you can use to support that decision, right? So seasonal severity, right? When you start looking through that seasonal severity section and reading what those considerations are, most of this information is going to come out of FIMS, right? We're going to be able to go into FIMS, go into whatever your closest raw station is to that fire, and pull climate graphs out of FIMS that support where you're at seasonally on this complexity assessment as well. But all this information that's in this guide will eventually be loaded into your decision, and it will be selected whether it's early, middle, or late, few, moderate, or many, based off of the criteria that are in this guide. So just spend some time, think about the fire, think about the guide, think about what you would craft in there, and then we'll go in there and populate some information after I catch my breath and get a drink of water here. Okay?
Just cut and paste, down a sheet based on which one of the three.
Yeah. That's how I've made this thing, is just cut and paste. So use the guide. I mean, look through the guide, spend some time looking at the guide too. I'm not saying you can't look forward to the guide, but go through that guide and look at all the information that's in there as far as information that can be cut and pasted into a WFDSS decision and things. And even if it doesn't apply to your fire directly, it's going to give you talking points. It's going to give you thinking points of things that you need to be considering, right? So while maybe you don't have a transmission line on your fire, maybe you do have a pipeline, and the same kind of avoidance, that you're going to want to have for a pipeline, you're going to have for a power line. So be thinking about those things as well. There is some language in here I need to edit out. I just noticed this, this is very heavy stage grouse specific because my time in Elko, obviously. So I need to go through and edit out a lot of the old SFA language and so forth. So when you get down into that stuff, don't pay too much mind to it, but just spend some time going through the guide and figuring out how what's in the guide would be populated into this as well.
Is that link DOI points?
No, it's FireNet site. Yep. So on that link tree.
Agenda attached, or like I have the agenda, but it didn't have, seems like some of the documents were just missing.
Okay.
There's like a link. If you take the picture of this.
Yeah.
Take a picture of that.
I didn't get this link tree though. I mean,
Yeah, no, this is the link.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took a picture, got on my phone, and then I emailed it to myself. A little archaic, but it was.
And I can email it to you too, if you give me your email. Yeah, come up there and I'll email that to you. And
SharePoint is it? Something fire training. Okay.
So it's KATHRYN
HRYN.
.GULLEY
All right.
Sweet, thank you so much.
Yes.
Now, all the researches are a little bit different, but
Oh, I know.
I'll take them all.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we're getting quite a few of our collaborators in here. Go into family. Let's see. I still don't see yours, Jeremy. You're not on that list, right? I mean,
What's
I
that?
should see your name on that list I was just looking at.
Yeah.
So I didn't see it all.
But each one. Oh, there.
Oh, there you are, right there. This is me. There. All right, is anybody else waiting for approval? Yeah.
Mine said I got approved, but I just did it this morning, so.
Did you see the ones in Teams that needed approved?
In Teams.
They're Chatterton and,
Okay,
maybe just Chatterton.
okay, yeah, I got Chatterton's, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. And then Shane, have you logged into WFDS EDU?
I'm in it right now.
Okay, so now you should be able to see him, Kate, and add him. That's the trick, is once I add them in FAMA, they have to log into WFDS EDU and actually activate it, and then they should show up in the list. So if you don't see Shane now.
In the decision.
Yeah.
So it should be,
Okay, so everybody's taken care of, right?
if she can add me,
Okay.
unless you already did.
Your last name is Kelly, is it with an E? No?
Yeah, why? That was Bertie.
Wrong.
I still don't know why I can't edit. The other thing that's important to understand here is when we are ready for publication. So like Kate as an editor, when she is ready for everybody else to be able to see all those edits that she's made, that's when you go and you check this ready for publication button over. And then everybody else has access to those edits that were made. So that's kind of how working group wise and WFDS, you manage that, is you do all your edits within your computer, type in what you want. Once you have it where you want it and you're happy with your edits, you go in there, you check off ready for publication. And then that pushes your edits up to the cloud. And then any of the other editors that are in the decision have access to those edits as well. So there's a little bit of delay. I mean, if you're working with a big group, there's just some things you need to be mindful of when you're doing edits and pushing edits up and down. So be mindful of that, I guess is the best way to say it. I do think there's a bug with the drawing tool. I'm kind of embarrassed that I can't draw a planning area right now because that's a big part of the decision, but I'm gonna have to do some more research because normally you would be able to go in and I would click on this drawing tool just like I have been. This would come up, you would tell it, just make sure, right? I would tell it to do the planning area. And in this case, it's only defaulting back to the current, but it should allow me to type in a new one as soon as I start drawing this right here. And it's not doing that. So I think that's just buggy. Oh, see there, now it's kicking in. See how slow that is? Okay. So it's just a matter of being patient. So this is what drawing, the planning area. It's a little bit better, I wish I would have had the pause boundaries up, but I'm just gonna go with it now that I got it up. It's not gonna be real pretty, but I'm just gonna draw a polygon around here. You can, if I remember right, thought there was a setting where you could, Well, the snap tool will allow you to select another feature that's on the map and then snap it to that. But again, I mean, you can use that for the pod boundaries, but what that does is it snaps it directly to the boundary. It doesn't give you any kind of buffer whatsoever. So yeah, I'm not gonna mess with it. We're past that point. We're gonna stick with the current planning area boundary, but you saw how I did that with the planning area. It's just a matter of either drawing it or snapping it to an existing feature and using those pod boundaries. But that's gonna give you the initial extent that it does that spatial inventory of. And then it's gonna give you any other additional planning area boundaries that are drawn after that. It'll also. So strategy, relative risk is an important tab as well. And I'm just gonna start talking about all these tabs because once we start talking about all of them, we can get people working in every tab and then you guys can kind of go back and forth and bounce in between the different tabs. Strategy can be done as either a strategic assessment or under a strategic course of action. So under a strategic course of action, like here, you would select whether you're going to do it under the planning area, under a user defined, under the pod boundaries, under a multi-unit shape. A multi-unit shape is a fire planning shape that's loaded into Spatial Fire Planning Service. It includes multiple jurisdictions. So for example, greater sage-grouse habitat, we have that loaded in as a multi-unit shape. We're working on loading in a power line right-of-way, a multi-unit shape that includes power line information for NV Energy and all the subsidiaries here in Nevada. Unit boundaries, subunit non-overlapping boundaries, other unit shapes, all of these shapes come from Spatial Fire Planning Service. So if you want any of those, but for this case, we're just going to go into the planning area and strategic course of action. That can be a wide variety of different things. So again, I'm going to go back to the guide and just, if I want to quickly go back to the home page, I click on the home page and then here I go into strategy and cost, right? And here are some different examples of what we can plug into. So like for example, last year there was a red book change where Forest Service had to have at least one protection objective, right? There was language in the red book. All forest decisions must include at least one protection objective. And that got BLM people up in a tizzy. And what I told everybody was, all you gotta do is go back to the red book. The red book has had this paragraph in there forever that you can cut this out. Firefighting and public safety has been, continues to be BLM's highest fire management priority. Protecting, conserving, and restoring the sagebrush rangelands and sagebrush habitat are among the BLM fire management's highest natural resource objective. If you guys were here in desert tortoise habitat, you could substitute desert tortoise habitat for greater sage-grouse in any reference, and it means the exact same thing. And the BLM's goal is to limit acres burned and damaged within and adjacent to greater sage-grouse habitat or desert tortoise habitat, right? So that's a strategic assessment. That is a strategic course of action that can be used broad-based on basically any fire, right? We want to keep the fire as small as possible to protect these values that are our natural resource values. If you wanted to do something more specific for sage-grouse, and again, I apologize, this is very sage-grouse specific. I'm from Northern Nevada, lived I-80 corridor my whole life. Everywhere there's a reference to sage-grouse, you can replace the greater sage-grouse with desert tortoise, means pretty much the exact same thing.
Since we're all combining, is there any language that you guys have tailored or heard of for park and fish?
No, not specific, but I'm sure you guys have had past experience, right? Where, I mean, it's all the same language.
I just didn't know if there's anything for you, like this similar for BLM, but
right,
similar for the park or.
I'm sure there is. You know, this is just a guide that I've created. I mean, and just because this is how I would phrase something, this is not policy. I mean, use this as a guide. You know, use this as a starting point. You know, I like to complain about AI. You know, but what's the great use of AI to get you a document to a starting point, right? So think about using this in the same way. This is just a starting point. Copy and paste it as much as you want, but realize there's specific language that you may want to use for your fire that this doesn't fit. In this document, I have a whole list of incident objectives, though, that I've used on fires as either a WFDS author or a plans chief or as an IC that go into, you can cut any single one of these, right, in this incident objective list, and you go back into your WFDS decision and you paste them into the strategic course of action. And those incident objectives now have become your WFDS strategic course of action. It's as simple as that. We don't need to overthink it any more than that. I know there's an argument out there where incident objectives are not strategic course of actions. Okay, yeah, we can play that game, we can have that argument. But for the course of this decision, for the course of a basic WFDS decision, if you include 5 well thought out incident objectives, you have a strategic course of action that you can plug into a fire and help your incident commander be successful. So that is where this belongs, though, is in the strategic course of action statement. Whether you put it in under the strategic assessment or you put it in under strategic course of action, that is where your incident objectives live. Within old WFDS, there was also language, and you're going to hear me use this phrase, old WFDS, new WFDS. In addition to incident objectives were something that were implementable, right? They were quantifiable, they were achievable. There is also an incident requirements list. Incident requirements are just things you will do, right? Not necessarily these are my objectives. These are things you will do. Those same things can also be added into a strategic course of action, and they can still be called incident requirements. You don't have to come up with a fancy name for them. But these are all items that should be included in your strategic course of action. So in this case, we've got information regarding the Dingle Act. We've got information regarding air quality. We've got information regarding, the use of chainsaws in the wilderness. We've got information on, retardant avoidance zones. All of that information that we like to put into our WFDS decisions can be included as an incident requirement. And all of that canned language is in this document, is in this WFDS guide that you can copy and paste and use for your decision. In addition to that language, you can include mop-up standards, you can include turn-back standards, again, getting pretty operationally specific, but if that's the type of decision you have, that is what a team is looking for, right? They want to know. So there's all kinds of information in there. There's actually full-on course of action statements as well, because you're going to see that once you get through the strategy, bar down here. Again, we get into fire safety, weather and smoke works, supporting information. WFDS does pull graphs in. So, just like any type of decision, and here, all this graph is doing is showing you that for this planning area, for this 5 by 5 mile box, this is the breakdown for SDI information. If you wanted to look at that information for any other, you could do it for potential control location. You can look at it for snag hazard. All of that information is included in here. You can also look at it for severe fire weather. That's a very new feature as well. That's pulling information from FIMS and to calculate severe fire weather. So that's good to see as well. Organization and complexity. Again, this is another part of the 236, right? So where the risk complexity assessment is part 1 of the 236, part C and E is the organizational needs assessment. And again, each of these relative risk ratings can be determined as you go through here. This can be something that is done in WFDS. It can also be done outside of WFDS if you want to do it outside of WFDS to first kind of figure out, hey, where are we? I mean, where are we on the spectrum? Do we need a complex incident management team? Do we need a type 3 incident management team? Normally if it's type 4, you have a pretty good idea if it's type 4, but that line between type 3 and complex incident management team, that PMS 236 could help you kind of get to your decision again. And if you go back to the guide, where we were, we'll go back, we'll just scroll through here because we're strategic course of actions, cost. Again, so within the guide, you can copy and paste this, but you can look at the guide. The guide says whether it's low, moderate, or high. And then it kind of tells you what are some indicators of low, what are some indicators of moderate, what are some indicators of high. And it actually has some language in here that you could cut out and copy and paste into a decision as well, if you wanted to. The one thing that I would definitely be mindful of in here is when you are done with that organizational complexity assessment, if you, once you get down to here and the majority of the items are ranked as high, that opens up part D of the form. So part D of the form is where you go in and you justify each of the sections and why each of the sections is, you know, you're not justifying, but you're rationalizing why each of those functional levels has the complexity that they have. And basically what this is, and I know it's not used the way it's intended. The way it's intended is an incoming incident management team goes into decision, can review that, kind of get an idea of what each of the complexities are for their sections. And then that starts the negotiation process between IC and agency administrator for, hey, we're bringing all 95 or we're bringing all 125 and here's why. Or the agency administrator says, no, I think you can get by with 75 and here's why. And that negotiation back and forth kind of happens. So in theory, I don't think that happens as much, you know, right now, just because there's kind of some newness with the CIMT things. And I think there's still a lot of feeling out. But I'll be honest, I mean, back in the day when we were ordering type 1, type 2 teams, the agency administrators that knew their stuff would negotiate rosters with teams. And teams would actually send rosters to dispatch centers before they were ordered so you could negotiate that. That doesn't happen now. Just doesn't happen. Right? I mean, whether that's a flaw in the process or what, it just doesn't happen anymore. But this is the space where between an IC and an agency administrator, you can kind of start having those discussions for what that incoming team looks like.
So we did see that more last year. We were having those discussions, yeah, on the agency administrator call and really working through some of that stuff and what it looked like.
Good.
My question for you, Dylan, so the TMS 236, how much of that language are you finding that you're copying into the part D? I mean, as you're filling out that form, are you using a lot of that same language?
Yeah, it really is more or less a copy paste exercise, and it is a lot of the same information.
And then you're taking that to the actual, once you order the team, there's the form that needs to be filled out for that. So it's
yeah, right. And that's specific by geographic area. So I don't know what that process looks like this year. And
imagine same language, though. You can use probably all three, so they're in alignment.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the argument. That's NMAC, right? You're talking about the NMAC approval. Yeah. For even now, I still argue to the folks at NMAC is you can get into WFDSS and read that. You don't need that. You don't need somebody working and putting that into your form. Somebody from NMAC needs to learn how to get into WFDSS and read that.
Just talking about some efficiency, though.
Yeah, right.
So you can have some work.
Yep. That is a good point. Yep, that's great. Yeah. But yeah, this is where that complexity analysis, and then all of that leads into the decision rationale. Okay. The decision rationale, again, is a space for each of the approvers to decide what that decision is going to look like. And I'm just going to scroll forward into the guide here because, you know, these are all part of the organizational needs assessment. And again, you know, just before we leave that, command, you know, here are some of the things that you could type into command to justify why you're going planning. You know, if you got a high complexity planning fire, this is some of the things, you know, you would put into that section to justify or rationalize why you need a complex incident management team for planning functions, operations, logistics, finance, they're all included in here. So again, you can copy and paste all that in. But this is the important part here, the decision tab, decision rationale. Basically, you know, what influenced managers to make the decision? What caused managers to choose the course of action? What are the causes and influences on the decision? What are the social and political concerns, pressures? What does the relative risk tell the user? Are there air quality, smoke concerns? And what fire behavior models inform your decision? These are all things that when a good decision rationale is done, each of these things informs that decision rationale, and that decision rationale may hit on each one of these in one form or another. I've got some canned language, my decision is to continue managing the incident using local resources, transitioning to a type 3 incident management team under a full suppression strategy. Again, as of right now, we're still saying full suppression. We've got a fire board memo that came out that says they're changing the terminology, but 209 needs to change, WFDSS needs to change. There's like a 2-year process for that terminology to change in order for all of our systems to catch up to that naming. So until that happens, I think we're still going to be going forward in this fire season using the term full suppression. If it's another option other than full suppression, you can obviously, but this is just a kind of a canned decision rationale here. Some of the other things, that we talked about were, this is the information right here that's in the red book talking about jurisdictional agencies. This should be included in the decision for those jurisdictional agencies as well. The following jurisdictions were engaged in this decision-making process. You'd identify all of them. There's differing things you can type in there depending on the involvement of that jurisdictional agency. So in some cases, you may have a jurisdictional agency that just has a small portion of the planning area that maybe the fire is never going to impact, and if that's the case, maybe they want to be listed in there at the initial decision, but unless the fire makes a move towards their jurisdiction, they're just happy being, kind of on the outside looking in. Where, maybe you have a little bit more vested interest in your decision and you're going to want to be part of that decision as a jurisdictional agency administrator or bureau representative, then you're going to want to stay involved through every periodic assessment and every decision that's published from that point forward. But depending on the scenario, there may be different types of involvement there, and all that gets to go in there as well. So all that information is in the guide. As you're filling in each of these tabs, now one of the nice things is within WFDSS, it actually tells you, what needs to be included. So we can go over here and we can look at the required decision elements. And again, remember, WFDSS is very map centric. If you want to get rid of the map, if you're not using the map, just push those arrow buttons. And this tells us that we still need to include our agency administrator rationale. We still need to make sure that each of these boxes can get highlighted before we are ready to publish. So some of these things, we're going to be able to work to, but we may not be able to get everything ready. But over the next maybe 15, 20 minutes or so, let's just work at populating the information for this fire into these decision tabs. Like again, we can have one editor working per tab, so we can have one person working in the organizational complexity assessment. We can have one person working in the firefighter safety, one person working in the strategy, one person working in relative risk. Using that guide, just kind of bounce back and forth between the guide. I'm not saying, again, the guide is not a cure-all, but it's a cliff notes that'll help you publish a decision in the event that you've never published a decision before, and it gives you good canned language that will help make your decision better. Feel free to use it as you need to, but that's basically how you can edit a decision from beginning to end. I realize the spatial thing, and we'll get the decision rationale in there as well, but that's basically how you create a WFDSS decision. So there's a lot more that goes into it, right? I mean, but just the basic decision for what gets included in each of those risk assessments and the decision rationale is included in the guide. And there's more information that goes into the fire behavior modeling and so forth. And that's where, we hopefully in spatial fire planning service, if you have your other unit shapes updated, that can be those critical values at risk. There's also a new national incident feature service called Critical Values at Risk Layer, or CVAR, that is completely outside of WFDSS. And that has been set up to where units can pre-identify those values at risk and have those available in that ISAP process, but it's just another host feature service that people have to maintain. So I'm not sold on that entirely yet. That's more for the teams to manage and their GIS sections to manage for now. But I think in the future, we're going to be uploading values into that CVAR layer as well, just to support the ISAP process. Questions? I know there's got to be some.
For the Southern Nevada folks too, there's in the SharePoint under the park planning folder, there's every WFDSS decision we've ever published on here. So those are there too for reference if you want to find one that's similar that you want to still language out of, or make sure you're capturing.
Yep. And that is a new one now too. So I'm going to have to log in, but so if you go into reports and you go into WFDSS Classic, and then this is just pulling in, this wasn't available in WFDSS up until this year. This is a new thing now. But that same thing Tyler was talking about, any past WFDSS decisions that were done in WFDSS Classic, you can now pull those out of the archive and download the PDF and basically have access to the PDF.
In your reports on production, you can do that. Well,
Yep.
Just look up your old decisions.
Yep. And that's why I could try to demonstrate it right now, but I would have to know the name of the training incidents in order.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of that as well. Okay. So yeah, now's kind of the time I just want you guys to get in there and be hands-on with it and ask me questions. I mean, I breezed through a lot of it, and I realized that, when I'm spending time trying to get through all the information, I'm not spending a lot of time with you guys actually practicing in WFDSS. So now's your time to actually practice. Yeah.
I keep getting a prompt that says, following integrated systems unavailable. I got one for like K-Service, Irwin. I keep getting everything. And then on supporting information, spatial inventory not created, selected. Is it?
Okay, I'll look at your computer. I'll come over and shoulder surf your curve for a second.
It's less.
Anybody else having those same issues, or is that?
I was earlier, no, I'm not.
Okay. So you may want to log out, log back in. It's one of those things. It gets really buggy. If it gets really buggy, log out, log back in, shut your browser down, delete your cookies, log back in and see if that fixes it. But I'll take a look at it if you're still having those problems. So. Okay, so yeah, if you guys can just work on populating that. The other thing too, it's not, so let's go back into incidents. There's some other things too that you can do. I mean, as you guys are playing around with it, I'll just kind of give you some of my pro tips. So for my home, this watch list, whenever you create an incident, go ahead and just, add it to your watch list. And then it becomes part of either, you can separate it. My active incidents are all the incidents that you have a role in. You're either a collaborator. But my incident watch list are all the incidents that you have a role in that you want to keep an eye on. So that's what I do, like during the summer. As districts are publishing WFDSS decisions, I go in there, I read the decision. I read every single WFDSS decision that gets published in the state of Nevada. Whether I'm on a fire or not, I read it. Whether I get, it might take a week or two by the time I get back from Nevada, but I go through that WFDSS decision and I score it out based off of those elements that I showed you guys in the WFDSS scorecard and what's on the first page of the guide. And this is how you can easily keep track of all those incidents. Is once you get into them, you just add them to your watch list. And then when you log into WFDSS, you don't even have to go to the map. You can just go to your watch list. So in this case, here, I'm going to go back into that incident that we were just looking at.
Can you see my firefighter safety comment? I don't know if it's let me save.
Is it in the narrative down there?
Yes.
Yeah, our priority overall, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I did my part. I can do that. I mean, that's cool.
Working. That means it's working.
It's weird. I can log in on my laptop, but I can't log in on my iPad.
Don't use your iPad.
On my iPad, I can log in to the real one.
Yeah. There's no functionality on the iPad, so.
You can just view it.
Yeah.
You can't enter.
I've been keeping on. I can
Yeah.
drop.
What?
It's gonna be buggy. Yeah, it's gonna be buggy.
Yeah, sure. Trying to ensure it.
And then this is where, so if right here, if I want to take that off my watch list, and see, here's where it's bugged, because that should be pretty much instantaneous. But that's where you add those instances to your watch list. It's right there. You can either check or unselect. With the map feature too, there's a lot of capability within the map features. Again, just like with any other AGOL product, and it's not loading right now, so it probably won't load, but you can make a geo-reference PDF map by just using the print function. If you want to upload your own data, you can upload your own data into the WFDS map as well. So yeah, the map functionality of WFDS now is definitely much better than WFDS Classic. It's just being really buggy right now, so. This is a different fire.
Jessica was talking to even though it's on the application, you said that up higher, the interpreting system fire. It's like, well, how does somebody start working? It's not an announcement, so that's what I asked about, because you're just gonna keep it still. Because I might do it. He's saying that it's not a thing, it's getting out of the bump. See, it's supposed to have a name, well, how would somebody even start working with Asian? You're gonna start someone. Can't require people to be hired employee before they. But I just feel like
I guess the, need to take your computer everywhere. For vacation?
Yes, you do.
Then I was like, oh, except an iPad. I'll say, every vacation you have your computer. But they're gonna have to figure out some sort of application. But yeah, if you read the, regular stuff, there's some application. So. That'd be cool if they could do payment.
Yeah, you're able to go to Dallas on Monday, or let's say on Saturday,
Wednesday night? Thursday, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I just, I was just like, oh, Wednesday, because I didn't have the.
Thursday.
Okay.
It'll be early, it's like an 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to go out there.
At least, I need to shake all, that's one vector scenario.
Yeah. I'll work on that later today, and then tomorrow I have the, I don't know for sure, right now, but should take.
When you have on Thursday.
Yeah, on Thursday or
Thursday.
is it at the DOE site or
Is it Dallas?
on the base?
On the,
Sweet.
On the base of 8.
gonna go?
Yeah. It's very good, so we heard morning. Get on the base at 8. Cross down.
Dude, it takes me easier, it's faster for me.
I'm right there, bud. Staying right there.
Yeah, you
Trust
are.
me, What'd you call it? The sound of freedom? Is that-
Yeah. It is, man. Houses, I was like, oh my God, this is an awesome house to stay on. Outside, I was gonna put it off in Let's keep looking.
So somebody drew a new spatial planning area boundary, right? David, that was you?
It works.
Yep. Yep, you got it. See, this is big, it's buggy, and yeah, we're just gonna go with the big box in this case, but, yeah, we like talking.
Well, I got hung up because when I went to draw my shape,
Mm-hmm,
I wasn't going back to the arrow for the drawing tool.
to move it, yeah.
Yeah, because usually when you draw a shape, instantly in AGOL, it lets you edit it.
Yeah.
So here I had to revamp how I managed stuff.
Yep.
So when you're drawing a new boundary area, you go into instant information and draw there with the drawing tool.
You can draw with the drawing tool, or you can do the clip. If you want to clip it to an existing boundary, like a pod boundary, but yeah, for the most part, I just use the drawing tool.
I didn't do it on here because I didn't want to mess up our instant.
Right.
I do want to fiddle with it, but I don't want to fiddle
Yeah,
with
fiddle with-
everyone's stuff.
Yeah, you can fiddle with it.
Fiddle
away. And one of the functionalities that we're also missing is you used to be able to very easily go into Google Earth, draw a KML, upload your KML, and then it would convert it and everything would be good. Hopefully we get that here in the near future, but you can't currently upload a KML.
What about shapefile?
You can upload a shapefile.
So if you make shape
Yep.
on Pro, you can just
Yep,
upload it.
yep. You can upload it just as a standalone shapefile. Yep.
That's way easier.
Yep. So, yeah, that's definitely, if you have the work of if you have a GIS specialist working with you, definitely use ArcPro for that. But if you just need to do a quick planning area box, whether it's drawing a box around the pod boundaries or drawing a box, it's easy just to use that drawing tool. Usually it's easy just to use that drawing tool and just click a few vertexes and call it good. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and generate another SI. You'll see me, I'm bouncing back and forth between the list, and you guys that are in here, if you're working, that's what you would be doing if you're working on a decision. So again, if you want to see where we're at and what needs to be done, and this is, I've been in rooms about this big, working on a WFDSS decision 3 or 4 hours before a team in briefing, and this is kind of what you're doing. If you want to go into decision approval, and just keep going back and forth between this required decision elements box. Everything that you see here, everything that's unchecked, somebody in this room needs to go into that section and do something, save it, and then slide over the ready for publication button at the bottom after you've saved it. So the analysis summary doesn't need to be done, but the relative risk, strategic assessment, strategic course of action, estimated final incident cost, organization and complexity, agency administrator rationale. And that's part of the training, is being able to go in there and find it. So for example, cost, you're like, okay, cost. Well, where is my cost? Where is my cost? You don't realize that cost, there's no cost up here, right? So where do I go to find cost? Oh, organization and complexity, firefighter safety, strategy, where is it? Relative risk. There's all these different things that you need to look through and you need to find it. And really, most of them are hidden in like incident info tabs. You can go back here, you can see spatial inventory, you can see collaborators, all of those other people are in here. But in this case, like for cost, we're gonna go into strategy, strategic course of action. And why can't I find cost right now? Here I am talking about it, I can't even find it.
You're right, it's in strategy.
It's in strategy?
We gotta click that box over to the right.
There we go, yep. See, I even get myself every now and then, so little things like that, right? So here is where your cost information goes in the decision. So thank you, Tristan, appreciate that. Not a lot of, estimated final cost. For the actual decision itself, and we can go back into the guide here. I'll go back into the guide because I do have quite a bit of information regarding costs. So I'm going to go back to the home page. Then come back here, go to cost.
Matrix for the cost or just a statement?
Not anymore. It's just a statement. Yeah. So basically, this can be the narrative that you include in there. The WAG, and this is, this is just a WAG. Basically, every type 3 incident anymore, you're gonna have a minimum of $1.5 million, okay? So if you're doing a decision in WFDS, you're gonna wanna have that minimum cost. And this is all stuff that's new to me too, because I'm used to the reference of the $5 and $10 million thresholds. So I've always taught to that, don't worry about anything. Nobody cares about your WFDS decision until you hit $2 million. Once you hit $2 million, somebody might look at it. Nobody really cares about it till you hit 5 million, and a few more people might look at it. And then nobody cares until you hit 10 million. Then a couple more people might look at it, right? That's really kind of how we broke it out in the past. But I think cost is going to be a lot more of a driver in the WFDS decision now. I think the inclusion of incident business special, because, and here's my rationale. Here's why I'm saying this. We took away the process for notifying when a cost reaches a certain level, but we didn't take away any of the incident business advisor's responsibilities to still monitor cost. Somebody has to monitor that cost, and the WFDS decision is probably the best place for business type folks to monitor the real life cost of an incident outside of FBMS, right? Because it takes incident business specialists 6 months after a fire just to do all of the work that it takes to reflect a true fire cost, right? So if we're trying to demonstrate and we're trying to portray what that true cost is, I think this WFDS decision. So anyway, the reason why I think the cost section is going to be a little bit more important is I truly believe that the incident business specialist is going to start having more input into these WFDS decisions, and you're going to be including them not only in the cost estimation, but also on the cost tracking, right? Because once your team comes in and takes over, then you can start doing that daily cost tracking, and then you can start showing what your true costs are. That's when stuff starts going on to like the RMA dashboard, the incident timeline, the generator that's there. If you guys have ever used that as a finance tool, huge, very, very good tool to use on the RMA dashboard because it shows incident costs day to day aligned with incident resources and how your containment is affected by that incident cost and by those resources that are assigned. So, but anyway, in the cost section in the past on these WFDS decisions, I would always WAG if it's a type 3 fire that you're doing a decision for, minimum $1.5 million. Anything less than that, you're just shortchanging yourself. And really, the cost was a driver in WFDS because if your cost ever exceeded what that projected final cost is, you had to do a new decision, right? So you never wanted to shortchange yourself. You never wanted to have to do a decision because you estimated $750,000 and your fire ended up costing $1.1 million. In the grand scheme of things, does anybody care? No, nobody cares if your fire costs an extra $200,000. So in the WFDS decision, though, that's where we show that. Some of the other things too is there's a cost tracking after an incident management team is in place, so you can start showing, hey, we're giving this decision a $35 million cost limit. We expect that to last another 14 days. If the daily costs exceed $1 million a day, that's going to run out in 10 days type thing. So yeah, there's a lot of information that you can put in the decision to help support that cost, and that information is in here. But it's going to be important to put it in that WFDS decision. Sorry, wrong screen. Okay, how we doing? How we doing on that decision? Just copy and paste. Yeah, I mean that's really what it is. Copy and paste.
Well, mostly is just initially get the first one off the ground for like this fire specifically.
Yep.
I think that was the one Joe did, right? Joe worked with Nick to get it done. It worked out pretty well.
Yep. Yeah, and that initial decision. You just want, you don't need perfection. You just need a product, right? You just need to get a decision that is not going to restrict you. It's not going to limit you to cost or organization, but is also going to allow you to expand what you need if the incident expands or gets more complex over the next 3 or 4 days. That's really what the decision is.
So now with this, Dylan just had a question. We didn't run a WFDS in the new system last year. We didn't have an incident. This is the previous year in the old system. Now, when you go in to request FS Pro runs, you can request that all in WFDS now, correct?
You can, but the request doesn't go anywhere.
That's my
So,
question.
yeah,
Like, where's that even going?
yeah, no, I would, again, if you're gonna request any.
I see it in here. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool if it goes somewhere, but is it
doesn't.
actually, okay, so you answer my question. It's not really going anywhere.
No, it doesn't go anywhere. Fire behavior analysts who log into WFDSS can see a huge list of requests, but nobody
Yeah, I
is
still need to
assigning.
call
There's
them.
no process
Yeah.
to assign them those
Still
requests
have to go to our
and say,
fire.
please work on this. That's why on this link tree,
Yeah,
this link right here that I just clicked on.
I remember you had something set up last year too for that. No.
Yeah, this is the request that you want to do. Okay, don't do the request in WFDSS. Remember, go back to the link tree, do the RIST request form. This will put the request into the RIST program, and then they'll coordinate with us as GAEs, and we'll make sure that you get the fire behavior analyst that you need working on your.
And that's just appropriate this year to put in request. I know like last year, whatever, we'd go to our fire planners and have them work with them.
You can still.
Still.
You can still, yeah. This is, if they're gone, no, this is one click. You put in your information and you've got somebody working on it for you.
With the new transition to us going, more of a different model. No, we're not PWR anymore. Is that gonna be most likely you? So I could just.
We're working on that memo right now. It's down to 4.
Just give you an email or a phone call like I do with our old
Pretty
fire
much.
planners and versus put in this request if I know it's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out the new players in the new system this year if we get something.
And I would still say, put in this request, because that's all I'm gonna, when you call me, I'm gonna say, did you fill out the form? And then either I have to fill out the form or you have to fill out.
Oh, no, it's too lazy. I'm just calling you, Dylan. I like using old school. Yeah. That's why I just want to see our new process is.
Right, no, you're, that's a good point, because we are.
I assume since the change went in, we will get an incident this year.
We will.
Yeah, because the change went in, so just trying to think ahead. And I might have to just, I might go back and have to just have some more questions for you, if that's right. I think I'm gonna set up kind of our own trainings based off the parachute stuff.
Yeah.
Get that preloaded and then have some questions for you, because like I said, we didn't have that opportunity last year.
Yeah.
Our first time really going through this modernist training is gonna be a real
Right.
incident. And I know I'll probably think I could do it, but have hiccups.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember little things like.
No, yeah, David, you guys.
Is this a state request or is this open to the whole GAC? Like we're in Utah, we need help.
No, this is national. This is going to the RISC. Yeah, this is the RISC program.
So I can use this anywhere.
Yep. T brought up a good point too. So we have within the Great Basin, under the coordinating group, we have what has been called the Great Basin Strategic Fire Planning Committee. Last year, that committee put out a WFDSS memo that listed a whole table of geographic area editors that people could go to for WFDSS support. We're working on issuing that memo right now, but that table has been cut in half. Basically, we were told that in order for anybody to be involved on the committee or to be included as a geographic area editor, that they had to physically reside within the Great Basin. And a lot of those people were shared between multiple regions. They didn't live in the Great Basin. So now the list of our WFDSS geographic area editors who actually live within the Great Basin is down to 4 people. Myself, Mark Williams, Jeremy Cisneros, and Matt Ginder. So that workload is going to be taken on by a lot fewer people. But that's the direction from the new geographic area chief, and that's what we're going to do. So that's what it is. So you can expect to see that memo come out here shortly. I don't know exactly when the coordinating group, it's been a lot of going back and forth, just identifying who those people are. But when that memo comes out, that'll also identify this process and what that process looks like for people to get either fire behavior modeling support or WFDSS authoring support on their decisions. Good questions. Good questions. Okay. How are we doing editing in here? We having any more problems editing?
Trying to make one of the tabs ready for publication, but it's not letting me, so. It says I didn't do all the required fields, but I have to see back here.
Are you in the strategic course of action?
I'm in the relative risk tab.
Okay. Yeah. There's something in there, and it is frustrating. Even it catches me every time. You just kind of have to go back and forth until you find what it's missing.
There you go outside of me.
What? It did it for me.
Now I try to reload it and kick me out. Hope Ben doesn't have to close his browser because he closed like 78 windows.
Another kind of tip in WFDS, and I was doing this earlier, so I'm a bad example. Do as I say, not as I do type thing. Try not to hit the refresh button if you're having issues with WFDS.
I just did that.
Yeah, you can. You can just tab over. By tabbing over into any of these functions, it basically does the same thing as a refresh, but it'll go out, see you anytime you see that blue spinning wheel that's going back up to the server, requesting new information and so forth. So if you had information like you were typing and saving, and it didn't like push to the cloud, if you do it this way, you may still have it, but if you just hit refresh, it's going to do a clean wipe of your cookies, and you're not going to have any of your past browser history. So,
Yeah.
Great too.
I saw that, I was like, let's be better. Yeah, it works, it works.
Sure does.
Mhm.
All right, I was able to clear that relatively risk tab is filled out. That's done.
We're all gonna be gone. Kelly's gonna be stuck.
Right. It's not copy pastable on that, didn't it?
Hey, at least it's not worse than FTCNS. So.
It's not, right?
No, I can't go back in. Doesn't like me.
so here's probably a good thing too. And you guys are seeing this exact same advanced editor tab in every field, right? With this advanced editor tab, you can see you can do numbered lists, you can do bulleted lists, you can upload an image from a computer. Basically, any kind of, this is where WFDS is scalable. So for example, fire modeling, say I wanted to come over here. Oh, maybe not fire modeling, but we're gonna pull this map in.
Not like me. So written works.
Get my authenticator, authenticate
It
myself.
just shouldn't matter if it's eauth or login.gov, right?
Yes.
One is easier.
eAuth requires your PIV card. Login.gov does not require your PIV card. So
It should work both the same.
if you're using your government computer, I would just stick with the eAuth.
Yeah.
Login.gov is the same way, like you log into USA Jobs, all those other.
Because I have login.gov through my CAP card.
Through your what?
Through my card,
Mm-hmm.
my certificates.
Yeah, but you can set up your login.gov to also work off of like your FireNet account.
Yeah.
You can set it up to work off of any other accounts as well. So that's why login.gov, you do want to maintain it because that's the only way you can access mobile. If you want to try to access WFDS through your iPad or through your iPhone, you would access it through login.gov, but for the most part, just to use that e-authenticating.
It's weird to kick me out. It doesn't work on my own computer.
Yeah.
In MacBook.
All right, so within WFDS again, so we can just do a screenshot, right? So say I want to include a map. So say this map is some fancy map that's got all of your values at risk, your fire behavior modeling on there, everything. You just do a screenshot like that. You can copy it and go back into your WFDS decision, paste it in there. And that's how you bring in secondary sources into your WFDS decision, right? So whether that's fire modeling, whether that's maps, you can just do simple screenshots. You can copy and paste screenshots. Another tool that you can do if you're doing multiple maps, like for my map, for example, you go into the print button here, Within AGOL, I told you guys that you can make georeferenced maps. If you want to make a georeferenced map, you just call it a PDF. If you want to make a JPEG, which all of the attachments that go into WFDSS are JPEGs, you go in there, you say, make a map, make it a JPEG, hit print. It creates a print. Give it a second. It does take a little bit sometimes. Once it's done, makes you a nice little JPEG. If I wanted to, I could go through and format the JPEG to actually make it look like a map or whatever. But then you can actually go into WFDSS itself. Delete the screenshot. And here I'm going to say upload a file, upload from computer. Wherever I saved that JPEG to, you would just go into that directory. And that would be the quick way. I mean, if I'm doing 15 or 20 different items that I'm bringing into a WFDSS decision, I'm going to do all 15 or 20, save them as a JPEG, and then come back through here and then import them into different parts of the decision. So when you import, again, I'm going to paste that picture after. This one right here, you're going to want to pay attention to, because what this does is if you want that image to be the original resolution of what the copied image is, you do the original. But if you want to scale that down 50, 75, whatever, you do that right there. And then what that does is in the PDF, it actually shrinks the image down in the PDF. So it fits everything in the window just a little better too. So for maps, you may not want to shrink it down to 50%. For maps, I'd probably keep it at that original resolution, just because when it gets translated into a PDF, you want that map to be as wide of a screen as possible. But for anything else, you can shrink them down and squeeze them into your decision in whatever format looks best. So I'm going to check that off and hit save. And the reason I did all that, because that should check off another box. And again, we're going back and forth, and we're just working on getting all of those required elements done. So once that saves, and anytime you're working in one of these tabs too, once you hit save, you always want to slide over the ready for publication. So if you haven't been doing that, make sure that you do that. And then we're going to go back into the decision. And you can see that we're slowly making progress, right? We're getting there. So I still need some folks. Kate, how are we doing on your strategic assessment? Kate, if I can have you work on that, I will fill out the agency administrator rationale. And then we should be good. And just remember that strategic assessment is a strategic assessment, the strategic course of action tab, and then that cost tab as well. And then somebody needs to be working on the organization and complexity tab. Anybody want to volunteer to finish that tab out? Ben, why don't you finish that tab out for us?
Organization?
Yeah. Okay. Give it about 5 or 10 minutes if you guys can work on those tabs, and then we should have everything done basically for a decision. And it's not going to be a clean decision. I mean, this is not something that I would say I published, but it's something that we can say that we published in here. I can generate a PDF and I can show you guys what it looks like in PDF. And then when you want to sit down and actually, this WFDSS training is available whenever. And I know many of you, I mean, and I say that for my job, I'm in WFDSS 50% of the time. If I'm at the office, I'm in WFDSS. I'm either in training. I mean, I'm checking decisions. I know not everybody's in WFDSS all the time, but WFDSS training is available to you guys whenever. So if you got a slow day at the office and you want to go into WFDSS and create your own decision, you can do that. By all means, I would highly encourage you guys to do that. But let's spend a few minutes going back and forth. If we can knock out that strategic assessment, those 3 things in that strategic assessment, knock out that organization complexity, I'll get the decision rationale pasted in there real quick, and then we should be able to work through pushing the buttons and approving it, just so we see what that process looks like too. Okay.
So that delegation, you're gonna choose. So.
And that's pretty typical, Dylan, how you guys run it. You have folks in each, working in each area, or is it? So when we're running, usually it's like one person, just.
One person in each tab. Yeah, you want one editor in each tab. You don't want more than one editor working in each tab.
But that's pretty much how you guys would run it. The former VLM, you'd have multiple folks working.
If you have, it depends on the size of the group.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've always been real small, so I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems way more efficient.
Yeah. And I've been on fires. I mean, I've been brought into decision support teams like up in Oregon a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Where we had 3 SOPLs working on 30 fires across 2 forests.
Okay.
So we were all just put into this room and said, these are the decisions that you guys need to have done today.
So
and then we would go through and just every day, we would do 2 or 3 decisions. Yeah, exactly.
Working with the FMOs and AAs, so right, to get that input from the SOPL side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it popular?
Yeah, so it's kind of, I mean, it's, every scenario is different, right?
Okay.
And I, just like a fire, every time is different, but yeah, I've been, it could be a case where, you're on the second rotation of a complex team, right? You have 4 or 5 people that are kind of working with the agency administrator, right? By then your agency administrators maybe have a group of people that they've been kind of globbed up with for the last 5 or 6 days, and you're all sitting in a room and working on decisions. So yeah, I've seen it done in a ton of different ways.
Okay.
But yeah, you do want to maintain one editor in each tab. You don't want to have multiple editors working in each tab. That's why that ready for publication slider, anytime you're working in that tab, you want to be the only one working in that, because it's not taking any of your edits until you slide that over. So if you got 2 people that are both doing things concurrently, there's a real chance it's going to screw the system up.
Okay.
And it's just going to make people work. I mean, all that work, you just spend half an hour and it's not going type thing, right? So.
On the LP, they do 35. So we usually weren't the ones sitting there with the keyboard.
It's like the two of them. I think that guy now.
He's good at it. He's done well. Grant's good. Yeah. Grant walked me through one.
Yeah, they're not hard.
So, what's wrong with it?
I took one. That's about the ones.
Okay, so again, I just populated the decision rationale, just like all these tabs are the same. Process workflow is you hit save, so you want it to save, and then once it's done saving, you come down here and you hit that ready for publication button. So again, you're going to see 2 spinning blue circles, one after you hit save, and then one after you slide over the ready for publication. And then once I slide that ready for publication over, I should be able to go over to my checklist. And at least now we have agency administrator rationale checked off. So looks like we're just waiting on a few more check boxes and we'll be ready to publish. I just kind of wanted to show you guys what that workflow looks like. But again, you guys might have heard me talking to Teague. when you have this many editors, it's real important that you make sure only one editor and one tab. You don't want to have multiple editors in each tab because they can be typing away, hitting save. And if they don't slide over that ready for publication button in the right time frame, somebody else could do their edits, right? Hit that publication slide button, and all the edits you just spent half an hour working on are just gone. So you got to be mindful of working with a bunch of people, but at the same time, when you're in a scenario where you have a lot of people, you want to put all those people to use and get this done. So that's how you do it. I haven't checked online lately. I have a handful of people. And you guys don't need to wordsmith anything. Just put words in there at this point. Just have something in there so we can create a PDF and approve it.
On relative stuff, I literally just copy, it says sage grouse. It's just.
I was worried to put stuff in there because I was worried about wordsmithing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to just copy and paste something. Where are you getting this analysis from?
Yeah.
Saying it's high.
Yeah. Copy and paste it, get it in there.
So if I just copy and paste on RealFire, it said Dylan just told me to copy and paste. I can just copy and paste all that in a guide there.
Yeah, well, so the whole story, copy and paste
The
it
head
in
guy
there,
said just
but
copy and
then
paste.
make sure it's specific to your file.
What are you talking about? I copied and pasted.
They said the AI.
If I could get an AI. When do you think, Dylan, the day's coming where we integrate AI and a lot of this stuff can be
It's
done
already,
by just speaking to it? Like,
Yeah.
it seems to me like some of these simple systems the government uses are more complex than they have to be.
Yeah.
Not that they're hard, they're just like the drop downs, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it can be, yeah, I mean,
I always wonder why like our systems are so kind of like, they're advanced but archaic even in all like IQCS. And I thought at this time we'd have, when they go redo these, it almost seems like they redid the imagery, but it didn't become more simplified, I feel.
it did.
And that could just be my brain.
Right, no, you're right, you're absolutely
I
right.
was confused. So when I thought they were telling me, whoops, this was changing, I'm like, we're gonna get this awesome, easier to use system that's more, not that it's bad, but it just seems like they re-imaged it. There are some cooler features, but it didn't seem to change to make it more simplified.
No, we lost a lot of capability.
Yeah,
As a
it
matter
did.
of
I
fact.
was shocked when I took the first training that I thought the simplified system was coming and
Right.
I mean, I do like the mapping and that stuff seems, it's much better imagery, obviously. The other one looked archaic, but
Yeah.
I wonder if we're ever gonna just like, always just keep wondering, are we gonna do this? It's same shock when I pulled over and QCS 2.0, yeah, it was cool where the stuff is, but nothing really changed simplified wise, maybe a couple little things here and there.
You know, we're our biggest enemy when it comes to that, because we make all these systems, but we don't make them fully interoperable.
Yeah, 'cause you don't
They're
look-
still their own independent system.
You have stuff at home and you see how it's getting simplified with AI when you do something, why can't we do that?
Yeah.
It could, I just think it could be security.
Right. We're having a discussion about AI. We actually had a couple agency administrators last year, and this is something that, you know, I wanted to bring up during the WFDSS training. AI and what is ours called on Microsoft specifically? Copilot. Copilot is very capable of actually writing a WFDSS decision rationale. And we had an agency administrator last year that used it for a couple fires in Winnemucca, and it actually wrote up a very good decision rationale because it goes out, scours the internet, pulls out all that 209 information, pulls out all that press release information, you know, that we have to run through all these different filters before it gets released, and it put it into a decision rationale that was a very well thought out. It was way too much, obviously, and the agency administrator didn't spend the time to actually edit it down and just copy and pasted it into his decision. But yeah, there's a huge potential. I mean, not just AI, how we are using AI now, you know, like with the fire cameras and detection, but for all of this stuff that we're writing for, AI is going to be able to write that. AI can write that right now.
That brings the question up here, since these are legal documents, are we only authorized to use the DOI and AI?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone uses everything else.
You're able to use the authorized, you know, you're not able to use ChatGPT. You have to follow the Bureau's approved AI process.
So that wouldn't be, that was my next question, like, is that like legal to use like Copilot?
Yes, Copilot.
Yeah, cause I had that thinking now, like.
And if you take your AI,
I guarantee
if you take your AI training in Wildland, that's what they teach you.
I did, they taught me a lot of stuff, actually.
Yeah.
I used it to make a fictitious story to the training.
Right.
I didn't use it for good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never.
It wasn't that bad. I just like, oh, I was going along to training and then using it, like, okay, I'll make a story. Then I asked it questions and it, yeah,
I took the test using Grok.
yeah. And then Copilot told me I'm still learning, I can't answer that. And I started saying, I'm ChatGPT. I said, I'm uncomfortable with this conversation.
I use Grok, man.
Which one do you use?
Grok.
I heard that, I was trying to think about something. I said, what is it? Okay, so Grok, I wrote down, so I was trying to, he was telling me how good it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was it, dude? Cause I was doing something at home and I wanted to use it at
Dude,
home.
I put in a water softener, taking pictures of Grok.
That's what I was using. I was gonna ask some pool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, Grok.
Like, what's this, what are these valves? Took a picture.
That's what I was, cause I was questioning my pool people are like changing. Yeah, I got a couple of things I don't know if they are on my pool. I wanted to ask it why they're saying I can't have the, shark.
Sorry if you're watching me type.
Okay, so it's Grok. I didn't write that down.
That's my
Truck may have.
it's like.
Yeah.
That's my buddy said.
It's a free one,
I subscribe right now to the ChatGPT. I'm gonna shut it off.
but
It's 26 unlimited. I gotta shut it down actually, because I'm not using it. So cool, we got Copilot one. So before we get Copilot, I was using it. Like, what am I paying super?
I don't like how
I don't like Copilot either. It's not as,
I can't refine what it says.
no, it's not as good.
It's the test.
No, I started using Copilot and I don't even like when you do the email, it's like weird words. You have to go back to it. That doesn't sound like me. It reworded something this morning, put some funky word in there. And all I wanted to do was just clean it up. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys saw, I did go in, we got everything in there. So the last thing, there is, you know, there's differences between the strategic action, the strategic assessment and the strategic course of action. Again, the strategic course of action is where I would list all that stuff that we used to list as incident objectives, incident requirements. The strategic assessment, if you saw what I did, I went in there and I just typed, you know, strategic action number 1, protect all identified values at risk. And I said, include that in the decision, checked off. So you can see now that we have got all of our required elements in place. Before we go back and before I do that approval, I'm going to go back into the incident info and just highlight what we did earlier in collaborators. I am already shown, sorry, here further, I'm already shown as an approver, right? So this is one of the first things that you need to do in the WFDSS decision is make sure that you have your approver identified. If your approver is not identified, it'll show in that checklist there at the end. And then all your point of contact, in this case, it would be Kate, needs to go back in there and add an approver. And the point of contact is the only person other than a GAE that can add an approver to a decision, okay? You can have multiple approvers in the decision now. It was a bug in WFDSS last year that you could only have a single approver. So now you can have multiple approvers. So if there was multiple approvers, we would all be listed on here. And when those approvers are ready to approve, they simply go through. Push the ready for approval button. You can see that the draft